Rin cracked the blue wax seal, surprised by the formality, and unfolded a sheet penned in elegant calligraphy. Dear Rin, I spoke with the director about your work on the expedition. Your support was crucial, and your instinct for beasts is intriguing. The director has approved a special grant of 100,000 credits for the exchange store. Consider it recognition for a promising student. Perhaps it's time I trust that knowledge of yours and see what it does with a small push. Whatever you're planning, I hope this helps. I'll be away arranging a few matters. We'll speak when I return. Professor Zhao. He read it twice. The mushrooms at his temples quickened. 100,000. Enough to buy materials, his parents' runes, and still save his own crystals for later. Maybe the mantis core wouldn't have to wait. Jesse, he said at the counter, I need to place an order. So soon? Are you sure? She stopped when she saw the letterhead and signature. Oh, I have authorized credits, Rin said, showing the seal. Specific items. Her eyes widened as she checked the authorization and ledger. It's real. What do you need? First, 10,000 in discarded bronze rank beast parts. Only woody or rocky types, like that rock crocodile from a few weeks ago. Woody. Jesse flipped through a catalog. We've got forest guardian scraps and some crocodile tissue left. You're not cultivating a ghoul monkey, are you? I know what I'm doing. Next, luminescent poisonous fungi, the imported kind. They're 3,000 each. How many? 10. 30,000 just for fungi, she said, jotting notes. Woody tissues around 10,000. Anything else? 1 intelligence rune and 2 vitality runes. She hesitated. Common, yes, but those are usually for beasts that process heavy information loads. Vitality's not ideal either. ASPO. A spore gains little from flat strength boosts, I know, Rin said, smiling. I want them anyway. Jesse nodded and set the order in motion. I'll need a bit to pull it all. The scraps in the special store, runes are in the vault. While she worked, Rin ran the numbers again. The crystals he'd received for the shadow stalker skins would handle the rest. Jesse came back with sealed containers. Fungi are in special cases. They're extremely toxic. The tissues are packed with the original moss. And the runes. She opened a small crystal box. A translucent stone pulsed faint blue. Careful, she warned as he checked it. Runes are touchy around mana. Push wrong and you'll crack them. He packed everything with care. The path to combine each piece was already clear in his mind. Now, about your 49,500 crystals, Jesse said, reaching under the counter. I can't bank student credits here. Your professor's grant is an exception. For storage, you'll need the bank. You can withdraw from your 30,000 personal balance, but I can't hold more for you. She set a little lockbox down. For payout, I can give you 49 gold crystals, bulky, or if you add 500 to round up, I'll trade you 5 dark bronze crystals instead. Same value, easier to carry. Rin handed over a bundle of herbs he'd harvested from the barkstalker's shell to cover the extra 500. Dark bronze, please. Jesse opened a line case. 5 walnut-sized crystals glimmered, dark and dense. Thank you, Jesse, he said, fastening the last latch. You've been a big help. Anytime. She managed a small, kind smile. And good luck with your cultivation. There was pity in it, but it was honest. No one expected a spore to go far. They would soon enough. He could finally begin. Back in his room, the mushrooms on his scalp beat with a steady, eager pulse as he spread shadow stalker hides over his bed frame. Their conductive fibers drank the light until the space turned almost black. He hung more skins like curtains until he'd made a dark tent. Light leaked only in thin seams. The fungi's faint glow was enough. In the center, he set the standard processing pod, opaque metal rated for magical reactions. Around it, he arranged 100 bronze-sized crystals, the best of his haul, into a neat ring. The intelligence rune rested in its own box, twitching with tiny flashes. First step, prime the rune. Rin drew mana slowly through the spore and into the stone, keeping the flow steady and clean of outside interference. Too fast, and the lattice would fracture. Too soft, and it would never reach the threshold for synchronization. Sweat beaded. The rune brightened, and where droplets of energy touched the surface, tiny motes formed. Like spores. Once the charge stabilized, he unsealed the 10 poisonous fungi. Their colors were lurid and almost hypnotic. He ground them to paste in a spotless mortar. Any impurity would ruin the batch, then bled in a thread of mana. The mix frothed and deepened in color. Next, he cracked the containers of woody scraps and rock crocodile tissue. The reek hit hard. He focused on the preserving moss layered over them and nudged it with mana. It woke, crept, and fed, knitting over dead matter in slow, greedy waves. When the moss reached full spread, he scraped it gently, every strand charged with bronze beast residue, and folded it into the toxic paste. The mixture darkened and bubbled, hungry and ready. He poured it into the pot. This would be the transformation medium. Everything was in place. The ring of crystals, the priming rune, the sealed tent, the living medium. Now came the work that would decide everything. 100 days of careful cultivation while the crystals drank and the rune seeded. In the quiet black, with mana pulsing like a heartbeat around him, Run smiled. Step 1 toward truth. The materials were ready. One step remained to make the cultivation safer and dull the pain, if only a little. Under the dark canopy of stretched shadow stalker hide, the preserved female's body gave off a faint sheen. Ren traced the conductive fiber lattice with careful fingers until he found the right tentacle. Too thick and it would drink him dry. Too thin and it would clog in seconds. He needed a middle strand with a proper weave. This one, he used weaver silk to take a clean cut, the length no bigger than his index finger. The exposed fibers flashed once, greedy for mana. He dipped the tentacle into the spent solution of toxic fungi and moss. The liquid soaked in at once. The flesh darkened like paper taking ink. Next came the bark stalker powder. He sifted a thin coat over the surface and watched it settle into a pattern like tiny scales. That seal would force the tentacle to drink only the overflow he chose, not his raw vitality. Now, for the delicate part. He wrapped a grip band with weaver thread around the midsection so his fingers would not touch live fiber. The mushrooms along his scalp flickered a warning as he picked up the first crystal. The mana packed inside was 10 times what Taro used. Mishandled, it could rip open his channels. He steadied his breathing, tentacle in his right hand, and set its tip over the veins above his stomach where flow ran strongest. Here we go. He drew the crystal in. Paint it fast and clean. Mana poured through him like liquid fire. His channels flared to the edge of rupture. The mushrooms burned brighter, grinding at the surge. Ren pressed the tentacle to a point on his chest. The treated fibers latched on and began pulling off the excess, hungry but obedient. The pain ebbed to something he could hold. He tracked the path of his veins and moved the tentacle with them, skimming blockages, opening little gates so the current ran instead of pooling in lethal knots. Sweat slipped down his jaw. One slip and the buildup would spike in a vital node. The tentacle and his focus were the only things keeping him from permanent damage. The mushrooms beat a ragged rhythm, not ready for power like this. That was the point. They needed a controlled storm to wake. He kept going. The fibers took on a sickly purple cast as they neared saturation. Ren shifted his grip to the wrapped section and kept the pressure even. Minutes stretched thin. The crystal shrank, its mana split between his channels and the darkening tentacle. At last the flow slackened. He let out a long breath. The tentacle now gleamed a dense, oily black. Full to the limit. One down. He slid into a seal jar. 99 to go. The mushrooms dimmed to a weak glow, spent. Beneath that fatigue lay a new tone, tighter and deeper. First stirrings of awakening. The director's office crowned the central tower. Glass walls showed the ground spread below. The rest was books, floor to dome, and a painted ceiling of beast families in their realms, dragons threading through sky and sea. A slab of darkwood served as his desk. He read a note with a hard line between his brows. Light ran like gold dust through his white hair as the royal phoenix stirred. Zhao grows sentimental, he said, voice low. 100,000 credits for a boy with a spore. Genius, is it? Pity dressed as policy. He set the letter atop several reports on the Medusa incident. In the past, his charity had sense. He went on, phoenix heat sharp at the edges. This is not that. He lifted his gaze to the young woman waiting before the desk. She stood so still she was almost part of the shade. I need something looked into. His tone shifted to formal. An unusual student. The boy with the spore. She inclined her head. So you know who? Good. Test him. Find out what Zhao thinks he sees. He glanced at the note again. Tell me if this is another whim or the real thing. She bowed and crossed to the door, moving with a grace that scarcely touched the air. And be discreet, he said as she reached the threshold. No ripples. No names. Ren slid the used tentacle into its case and locked it. His hands moved slow, the last of his strength saved for the next steps. The mushrooms barely glimmered. The mirror showed faint changes. Mana still lit a tracer of veins beneath his skin. The fungi looked clearer now, with a richer shine. Subtle, but there. A hot bath, then a week of sleep, he thought as he gathered his kit. This was not training fatigue. It felt like someone had stretched his mind over a frame and left it to dry. He reached for the door. Knock. Knock. Soft, but snapped him upright. His roommates never knocked. No one came to Grey Wing this late. The mushrooms pricked with a tired alert. Who is it? He called, voice rough. That isn't important. A woman answered through the wood. Open the door for a moment, please.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The mushrooms in his hair pulsed weakly in alert. Who is it? He asked, his voice betraying some of his exhaustion from the intense cultivation session. That doesn't matter. A female voice answered from the other side. Could you open for a moment? Rin quickly looked around the room. The containers were sealed, shadow, stalker skins stored away, work area dismantled. But the smell, a mixture of poisonous fungi and decomposing tissues, still lingered heavily in the air. Who are you? He insisted, buying time while considering opening a window to clear the suspicious scents. It will only take a moment. It's very late, and I'm not presentable, Ren responded, his exhausted mind trying to process the situation. Could it be tomorrow? There was a pause, barely a heartbeat. The tone changed. Open the door, fungus. Luna's voice cut through the silence, cold and direct. I need to talk to you. Ren froze. Of all people. Luna. He tried to make his voice sound firm despite the exhaustion. I was about to take a bath. Can it really not wait until tomorrow? No. Ren looked around the room with desperation. Everything was stored but the smell, and he was shirtless, covered in sweat, his veins still glowing faintly from the mana manipulation. Luna, it's really not a good time. You have 10 seconds. Her voice didn't change tone. After that, my wolf will find another entrance. As if to emphasize her words, Ren felt the shadow wolf's presence manifesting on the other side of the door. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed more strongly. 5 seconds. No choice. Luna didn't seem like someone who made empty threats. Ren opened the door. Luna stood there, her shadow wolf partially manifested in the shadow beside her, her blue eyes studying him with clinical intensity. Her gaze traveled over his bare torso, stopping at the veins that still glowed weakly with residual mana. Interesting, she murmured, gently pushing him to enter the room. Her nose wrinkled slightly, though the smell is peculiar. Luna, please. Sit, she ordered, closing the door behind her. We need to talk about what really happened during the expedition. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with resignation. Where were you when the tent fell? Luna began while her wolf materialized more clearly, its eyes glowing with a silvery tone that seemed to pierce through him. In the hole with everyone else. But you already know that, Ren responded, noticing Luna's gaze focusing on his chest when he answered, studying his mana patterns. When did you leave? When you saw me do it. This is strange. You already know all this. Why? Ren stopped, understanding something. Mana flowed subtly to Luna's eyes, a pattern that Rin knew generated in some beast that used enhanced perception. Why did you leave? I wanted to verify something. Lies. Luna didn't change her expression, but her wolf growled softly. The real reason. Rin blinked, surprised by the certainty in her voice. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed while analyzing the mana flow in Luna's eyes again. I wanted to help, he answered carefully, observing her reaction. This time Luna didn't contradict him, but her eyes glowed more intensely. How did you know you could? I didn't know. Rin measured each word, noticing how the mana in Luna's eyes fluctuated with each response. I just had an idea. When did you see Zhao? A while after leaving the hole. The shadow wolf took a step closer, its eyes reflecting the same glow as Luna's. Was finding him a coincidence? Yes, Rin responded, and saw the flash in Luna's eyes. No, he corrected immediately. I knew he would be near because of the feathers left behind. Luna narrowed her eyes, mana flowing more intensely. Ow! By the attack pattern, the mushrooms in his hair pulsed while Rin connected the dots. Luna could detect lies, probably through small changes in the speaker's mana flow. I see you notice many changes. For example, did you notice the Medusas were very organized? Luna began. Too organized for. I noticed. Rin responded, aware of the mana flowing to Luna's eyes. Explore more stories at Empire. What else did you notice? That it wasn't natural. Medusas don't hunt like that. No. Luna took a step toward him. They don't. You know what else isn't natural? That a child with a spore knows exactly how to help during such an attack. Ren had to be careful. Luna was building to something. Someone must have been controlling them, right? The shadow wolf tensed. Why is Zhao hiding information about the attack in the official report? Why didn't he make public that they were looking for me and Klein's group? Why don't you ask him yourself? Don't play dumb. Zhao told you something. Luna didn't ask. It was a statement while her wolf moved even closer, before disappearing and avoiding my questions. He thanked me, he responded calmly. It was truth. What else? He left me some credits for the store. Also truth. Luna took a step toward him, her eyes glowing with a particular mana pattern. The games and roundabout hints stopped. Who gave the order to the attackers? I don't know that person. Technically true. He had never met the first minister. But you know their name. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with alarm. That was the real question Luna had come to ask. Ren maintained his neutral expression. He had to be very careful now. I know many names. Another truth. Which is the culprits? I couldn't be certain. Also truth. He had no physical proof to be certain. Luna narrowed her eyes, mana flowing more intensely. What did Zhao tell you exactly? That he would conduct a careful investigation. Truth again. The shadow wolf drew closer, its eyes reflecting the same glow as Luna's. They were looking for the slightest fluctuation in his mana that would betray a lie. Why? Because accusations have consequences. You're good, she said finally. Very good. Ren observed the mana flow in Luna's eyes that were now very close. You can detect lies, can't you? That's why the pattern in your eyes changes with each response. Luna tensed. I don't know what you're talking about. Now you're lying, Ren smiled, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing with enthusiasm. I think I'm understanding the trick. Impossible, Luna stepped back. You couldn't see. My spore can detect mana patterns too, Ren advanced, for the first time feeling he had the advantage. Luna stared at him while confirming that what Ren said was true. Show it to me, said Ron, his smile widening at seeing Luna lose composure and backing away as he approached, turning the tables. Show me how it really works. Listen, covered in sweat, his mushrooms glowing intensely. Luna, the untouchable Luna, with her hands gripping Ren's wrists, her perfect blue hair unusually disheveled. The room smelled strange. Sheets hung, creating mysterious shadows, and there was a tension in the air that could almost be cut with a knife. Both frozen in what appeared to be a power struggle. Oh, Min stepped back, colliding with Taro. Continued Taro, stumbling into Lu. Dragon, completed Lu, his bat manifesting briefly from nervousness. Iwi, Taro stammered, his beetle's markings flickering with embarrassment. We should come back later. No, Luna released Run as if he burned, her usual grace completely forgotten. It's not what. We'll sleep in the hallway. Min announced suddenly, his voice 2 octaves higher than normal, his water snake coiling nervously around his neck. Yes, the hallway. Taro nodded frantically. It's a beautiful night to sleep on the floor. Very hygienic, added Lou, backing away. Dust is good for the lungs. Wait, it's not what it looks like. Ren tried to explain, but his friends were practically climbing over each other to escape. Take your time. Min shouted from the hallway, his voice cracking. Yes, don't worry about us. Taro's voice sounded strangled. Luna turned toward him, her cheeks red with fury and embarrassment. This is your fault. My fault? You started it. Ugh. Luna headed toward the door, her manifested wolf ears drooping with embarrassment. This isn't over, fungus. And next time, she stopped, trying to recover her dignity. Next time will be in a more appropriate place. But if anyone, she hissed, hears a single word about this. She didn't finish the threat. The room's shadows seemed to come alive, wrapping around her like a dark cloak. In a blink, Luna and her wolf merged with them, disappearing as if they had never been there. Rin stood in the middle of the room, shirtless, sweaty, and suddenly very aware of how ridiculous the entire situation was. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed once, as if laughing. Guys, he called toward the hallway. You can come back. It's not what you think. We're not thinking anything. Min's voice came from far away. Absolutely nothing. Our minds are completely empty, added Taro. Like my future memory of tonight, completed Lou. Rin sighed. At least he had discovered Luna's secret about detecting lies. And she had discovered that maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated the foolish fungus. There was a long silence from the hallway. Is she gone? Min's voice sounded cautious. Yes, she's gone. Through the door? Asked Lou. Not exactly. Use the shadows again. Taro sounded impressed. The three peeked their heads around the door, one above the other like an improvised tower, their beasts manifesting briefly in curiosity. Is it safe to enter? Min sniffed the air. And what's that smell? It's a long story. Rin began gathering his bath things lazily, exhausted after everything that had happened. Oh, we have all night. Lou entered first, his bat manifesting to inspect the room. Especially after that. It's not what it looked like, Rin defended while Taro and Min also entered, closing the door behind them. You weren't having a romantic moment with Luna? Min arched an eyebrow, his water snake coiling playfully. Romantic? Rin nearly choked. She was interrogating me. Without a shirt? Taro grinned, his beetle's markings shifting in amusement. I was going to take a bath when she appeared. Uh-huh. Lou nodded solemnly. And I suppose she tripped and you fell on her. No, she was... Rin stopped, remembering he couldn't explain the real reason. We were just talking. Very closely? Min wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. And in the dark, added Taro. Find exclusive stories on Empire. With mysteriously hanging sheets, completed Lou. Ren groaned, collapsing onto his bed. You're impossible. And you're a heartbreaker. Min sat beside him. Who would have thought? First Lin, now Luna. Taro pretended to wipe away a tear. Our little fungus is growing up. Lin just trains me. Rin protested. And Luna hates me. Hate and love are very close. Lou philosophized, his bat nodding sagely. Can we change the subject? Rin pleaded. Weren't you going to tell me something when you came in? The three exchanged looks. Oh, right about the mines, Min smiled. But this, he gestured at the room and hanging sheets, is much more interesting. Though it stinks, added Taro. What are you really doing? Rin sighed. This was going to be a very long night. I'm going to take a bath, he announced, standing. And when I come back, we'll talk about anything else but Luna. Understood? Whatever you say, Lou winked. Romeo. His friend's laughter followed him into the hallway. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed with resignation. They would never let him forget this. At least Luna was equally embarrassed. That was a small consolation. The next morning, Lynn appeared before Run with her trademark sadistic smile. Not even his exhaustion from the cultivation process could save him from training. Faster. Lynn's voice cut through the morning air as she made him run with weighted bands strapped to his limbs. When he was finally released that afternoon, his muscles trembling from exertion, Run decided to demonstrate his cultivation process to his friends. They gathered around, watching with curiosity and apprehension as he meticulously laid out his materials. First, I crushed the poisonous fungi. Run began explaining, his movements precise and practiced. Men nodded along, following the process with keen interest until Run reached the part about overloading with 10 times more mana than Taro and controlling his veins with the tentacle while enduring excruciating pain. His eyes glazed over, and he toppled backward like a felled tree. "Min!" Taro lunged forward to catch him. Lou observed in silence, his bat ears occasionally manifesting as a reflection of his unease. The methodical way Run handled materials that would make most people retch was disturbing, to say the least. "And you say you'll absorb all that every day for 100 days? Lou finally asked, his voice a blend of admiration and horror. "Just 100 days, Run replied with an unsettling casualness. Lou nodded slowly, his respect for Run growing alongside a healthy dose of caution. There was again something deeply unsettling about the ease with which his friend handled substances that could kill a grown adult. The following days fell into a new routine. Classes continued as normal, though Luna now watched Run with an intensity that made everyone around them uncomfortable. "I think she's plotting your death," Taro whispered one day during May's class. "Or your wedding," Min added, earning a sharp elbow from Rin. Training sessions with Lin grew more intense. Each day brought new exercises, new aches, new boundaries to push past. The mushrooms in Ren's hair seemed to pulse in rhythm with his growing strength. "Your body is changing," Lin observed as she watched him lift weights, her keen eyes noting the subtle transformations. "Whatever cultivation you're doing, it's working." Rin could only grunt in response, too focused on not dying from exhaustion and pain. Finally, at the end of the second month, the official crystal report arrived. Rin opened his during breakfast, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing with anticipation. The report detailed everything: crystals mined from the caves, specimens collected, even processed and sold beast hides. Guard signatures and Master Song's verification certified the mined crystals, while Isaac and Jesse's signatures confirmed the hide sales profits. Zhao's signature at the bottom of the collection report certified each of the last items. Ren's eyes grew wider and wider as he tallied the amounts. The Academy would double everything: crystals found in the caves, beast materials values, collected materials processed, and sold materials profits. "How much is it?" Min leaned over his shoulder, curiosity evident in his voice. Ren revealed the total. His friends gasped in unison. "That's no wonder Luna's interested," Taro joked, earning a death glare from Run. The Academy's bank occupied the administrative tower's first floor, a surprisingly modest space considering the wealth it managed. At this hour, it was nearly empty, with only a few senior students making routine inquiries. Rin felt small as he climbed the stairs, his official report clutched firmly in hand. "Well, look who it is." Mr. Finch's high-pitched, mocking voice sliced through the silence. "The Academy's most prosperous fungus cultivator. My most intriguing depositor." The banker was a short, thin man with round spectacles that magnified his eyes until they resembled those of a startled mouse. His perfectly trimmed mustache seemed to have a life of its own when he spoke. Despite his impeccable banker's uniform, something in his eyes suggested he found everything terribly amusing. His beast, a small white mouse, occasionally darted between his fingers as he counted crystals. "Good afternoon, Mr. Finch." Rin approached the counter, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing gently. "Come to confess your crimes?" Finch smiled as his mouse approached, sniffing the air suspiciously. "Because I must say, 5 dark bronze crystals 2 weeks ago was quite interesting. Not many 10-year-olds handle that denomination." "Actually," Rin began pulling out the report. "Oh, wait, don't tell me." Finch raised a hand dramatically. "Found an ancestral treasure? Rob a noble's chest?" Or perhaps your mushrooms have hallucinogenic properties, and you've been selling them to the senior students? The mushrooms pulsed with amusement as Rin slid the report across the counter. What's this? Finch adjusted his glasses. Your written confession? How considerate. Normally I have to. He stopped mid-sentence, arching an eyebrow while stroking his mustache, his eyes growing even larger behind his glasses as he read. This is... He blinked several times, his mouse jumping to review the numbers. No, there must be a mistake. Is there a problem? Ren asked, suppressing a smile. Problem? Finch let out a hysterical laugh. The problem is these numbers make no sense. 2 weeks ago, you bring 5 dark bronze crystals, which was already suspicious enough. And now, he consulted the report again, 55,000 additional. His mouse began frantically calculating in a small notebook. 105,000 crystals in total. Finch removed his glasses to clean them compulsively. With a spore? The weakest recorded creature? Are you certain you haven't been selling illegal substances? Everything's in the report, Rin replied, with Professors Song and Zhao's signatures. Ah yes, the signatures. Finch narrowed his eyes. You're sure you didn't forge them? Or perhaps hypnotize the professors? Do your mushrooms have hypnotic properties in addition to being hallucinogenic? I just need to withdraw 5,000 crystals. Just he says. Finch turned to his mouse. Did you hear that, Theodore? Just 5,000 crystals. As if it were pocket change. The mouse nodded solemnly while continuing its calculations, tiny paws moving across the ledger with surprising dexterity. You know, Finch leaned over the counter, his eyes gleaming with undisguised curiosity. I've been at this bank for 15 years. I've seen students with legendary beasts amass fortunes. I've watched nobles squander entire inheritances. But never, and I mean never, have I seen someone with a spore earn so much in such a short time. He straightened, adjusting his glasses with practiced precision. Either you're a criminal genius, or there's more to those mushrooms of yours than anyone thought. About those 5,000 crystals? Rin persisted. Yes. Finch began counting, but paused mid-motion. Just 5,000? No grand plans? No extravagant investments? No fleet of golden carriages? Not for now. Boring. Finch sighed dramatically. Sure you won't share your secret? Between financial colleagues? I promise not to tell anyone. Except Theodore, of course, but he's a vault. Aren't you, Theodore? The mouse nodded again, though its whiskers quivered with what appeared to be suppressed laughter. Just good luck, Rin replied. Huh, good luck. Finch snorted while counting crystals. Next you'll tell me you won it all playing dice. As the banker prepared his withdrawal, Rin reflected on his true plans. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed while his thoughts drifted to his home. The problem was that now they had to rent it. First, Rin thought while Finch counted crystals with unnecessary flourish, I'll get their house back. Then, his eyes gleamed with determination. Then I'll show them they can have more. Voila! Finch interrupted his thoughts, presenting the crystals with a theatrical gesture and sliding them toward Rin. Here you are, my mysterious mycological magnate. 5,000 crystals, perfectly counted by the humble servant before you and verified by the illustrious Theodore. The mouse executed a small bow. Thank you. Oh no, thank you. Finch smiled while stroking his mustache. You've made my week far more interesting. Usually, I just see students complaining their allowances won't cover cultivation crystals. But you... He shook his head with mock admiration. You're a mystery wrapped in an enigma and covered in glowing mushrooms. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed with what seemed to be amusement as he stored the crystals. Until next time, Mr. Finch. Your adventure continues at Empire. Ah, a thread of future surprises. Finch turned to his mouse. Theodore, keep an eye on this one. When we least expect it, he'll show up riding a dragon made of fungi. As Ren walked away, he could hear Finch muttering. A spore, 105,000 crystals. Theodore, perhaps we should consider a career in mycology. Ren walked slowly back to his room, the 5,000 crystals weighing in his pocket like stones of possibility. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed softly while his thoughts wandered to his parents again. He stopped before a hallway window. At this hour, they would be preparing food in the small restaurant's kitchen, earning barely enough to survive. 100,000 crystals, he murmured with nostalgic feeling. In just 2 months, memories rushed in unbidden. His mother, counting crystals at the kitchen table, worry in her eyes as she tried to make the money stretch. His father exhausted, but smiling, always smiling. The investment, he whispered while the mushrooms pulsed more slowly, as if sharing his memories. I could return everything they spent on me. His fingers brushed the crystals in his pocket. Each one represented another step closer to repaying what they had sacrificed for him. Another memory struck without warning. His father on that night when he fell ill, coughing in bed while apologizing for having to use their savings on medicine. His mother, trying to smile while selling her best cooking pots to complete the payment for the worst egg. 500,000 crystals, Ren whispered, recalling the price of their old house. I could get it back in less than a year at this rate. The mushrooms pulsed stronger, as if trying to show him something. The image of their old house appeared in his mind. It wasn't large, but had been their home for years. His parents had never complained. Not once. Even now, paying rent for the house that was once theirs, they kept smiling, kept working hard, kept believing in him. No, he said suddenly, his voice firm. It's not enough. The mushrooms glowed more intensely as a new resolution grew in his chest. They gave everything, he continued. Not just the house. Everything. Their 30 years of savings. Their dreams. Their chances. He began walking faster toward his room, his energy building with each step. Why settle for staying where we were? The words came faster now. Mom always wanted a bigger garden. Dad dreamed of a larger, better-equipped kitchen. He stopped before another window, looking out toward the distant city. The high-ranked districts shone more brightly, their buildings rising above the rest like constant reminders of what lay beyond their reach. 30 years saving, his voice trembled slightly. 30 years working double shifts. 30 years waiting to have a child. And when I finally came, the mushrooms pulsed forcefully, sharing his emotion. They gave me everything, the words rushed out now. Without hesitation, without second thoughts, just everything. His eyes moistened as memories flowed. His mother teaching him to cook even when exhaustion bent her shoulders after a double shift, her gentle hands guiding his smaller ones through each motion. His father carrying him on his shoulders like a dragon, spinning tales of legendary beasts despite his back aching from hours in the kitchen, never once letting the pain show in his voice. They don't deserve to just get their house back, he declared with renewed determination. They deserve more, much more. Ideas began flowing through his mind like a rushing river. A new house, larger than their old one. A huge garden where his mother could cultivate whatever she wanted without worrying about space. A kitchen where his father could experiment with new recipes, with proper equipment and room to move. 10 million, he murmured, testing how the number felt on his tongue. A house in the city would cost at least 10 million crystals. If I just... The mushrooms in his hair pulsed forcefully at the magnitude of the figure, their light reflecting off the window glass. No, it's impossible. I'm getting cocky since I got a bit lucky lately, whispered the part of him that still thought like a low-rank family son. Is it too much? Responded the new part, the one that had earned over 100,000 crystals in 2 months. Is it really too much? His eyes moved to the intelligence rune inside its box with a crystal, where spores continued developing. To the sealed containers filled with materials most would fear to touch, but he had collected alone. To the crystals gleaming with contained power that he was absorbing daily now. 2 months, he repeated, his voice stronger. 100,000 in 2 months. And I'm just getting started. Enjoy more content from Empire. The mental image shifted. It was no longer their old house with its familiar rooms. Now he saw a new house, spacious and bright, worthy of the people who had given him everything. A house in any normal district of the city they choose, anyone they want. If I can prove I'm capable of reaching at least silver rank, I could get them good place. No rank restrictions, no limitations. The mushrooms glowed like captured stars while his determination grew. casting dancing shadows on the hallway walls. I'll show them, he promised. I'll show them their sacrifice was worth it, that their faith in me wasn't misplaced. His hands closed into determined fists, knuckles white with resolve. I won't just recover what they lost. I'll give them what they always deserved to have, what they never allowed themselves to dream of because they were too busy taking care of me. Rin felt something new awakening inside him. He was no longer just a child trying to fix the past. He was a son determined to build a better future for those who had given everything for him. 10 million, he repeated, this time as a promise. And that's just the beginning. The mushrooms pulsed one final time, sealing his oath with their ethereal light. This was no longer about recovering a house or the tuition of 1 million. The old goal of regaining what was lost now seemed so small, so limited. He no longer wanted to return what they had. He wanted to take them where they never imagined they could go. This was about giving them the world they had always deserved. A few days after reaching his new resolution, Rin sat on his bed, every muscle protesting after his night training with Lin. The mushrooms in his hair barely pulsed, exhausted from another day's work in the mines. Correct maturation, 10 out of 100. Incorrect maturation, 82/1000. The amount of crystals he'd collected and his mana resistance had taught him something important. No matter how much he trained or how hard he pushed himself, his limits were painfully clear. He couldn't venture beyond 200 meters to work, could only stay for a few hours, and accumulated 4 days of incorrect maturation. Plus, the monsters wouldn't let him stay in one place for long. Even 150 meters sometimes yielded better results. At 250 meters, it would be 8 points of incorrect cultivation, and he'd be dangerously close to the bronze ring's mana levels. He wouldn't even manage an hour of work there if he considered the time needed to climb up and down, or the time to avoid monsters. Today, he'd barely lasted 2 hours at 150 meters before excess mana forced him to retreat. His cultivation was oversaturating him as well. But if I want to make more money, he murmured while massaging his aching arms, I need to go deeper. The mushrooms pulsed weakly, as if nodding. It wasn't just about knowing how to find good materials anymore. He needed to be able to reach them. Continue your saga on Empire. The Iron Ring and the minus 100 meter level, with their low mana concentration, were safe but limiting. Even in just over a month, when they will have their next collection trip, he couldn't achieve much more than before if he wasn't able to endure. The truly valuable materials were in deeper zones, in territories where higher-rank beasts dwelled. 10 million crystals, he thought while remembering his promise. I won't get them by settling for what I have now. Rin knew that even at bronze rank, his fungus wouldn't have the power of a common beast. Its capability was unique, but its raw power and mana processing were far below a common beast. If he wanted to give his parents a truly comfortable life, he needed access to rarer, more expensive materials. But with his current level, Rin stood up and took out the Mirror Mantis core. He had kept it thinking it might be useful eventually, but now that he was closer to being ready, a second beast, he murmured while the mushrooms pulsed more intensely. With the right process, he stopped, an idea forming as he remembered a story his father used to tell him before bed. A tale about dragons and the origin of eggs. The world was divided by the abyss, a chasm so deep no one had seen its bottom. Some said it reached to the planet's heart. The abyss cut the world into 4 parts with its 2 perpendicular lines. One line was the dead abyss and the other the living abyss. Yano controlled 1/4 of the world. Yano another quarter, or so they said. Rin smiled at the idea. Control was a pretentious word when 90% of those 2 territories belonged to the dragons. Humans barely occupied a circular area that monsters simply despised for its lack of mana. The other half of the world, divided by the living abyss, no one had crossed. The dragons won't let you go there. The mushrooms pulsed while knowledge showed him why. Behind the territory of the dragons guarding the living chasm, the abyss wasn't the dark and dry void that divided Yino and Yano. It was a living river of pure mana, so concentrated it glowed with its own light. The few adventurers who had ventured that far and seen the chasm from afar swore eggs were born there, floating in that primordial flow. Like seeds in a current, Ren murmured, remembering his father's words. Each egg absorbs mana from the nearest dragon's territory, and that's how it gets its color and potential. It was a beautiful story, romantic even. It's just a tale, Ren reminded himself, smiling. A pretty story about dragons and mana rivers. But his knowledge told him there was more to it, though something didn't add up. If eggs only came from the abyss in dragon territory, how could the kingdom release hundreds to the market each year? How do they collect them? Who ventured that deep into dragon territory regularly? Knowledge whispered a different answer. Ren observed the mantis core again. They don't need to go that far, he murmured while the mushrooms pulsed with excitement. Because the abyss isn't the only source of pure mana. Knowledge flowed more clearly. Mana veins ran throughout the world, like arteries carrying life. Most were small, barely detectable. But some, the ruins, his eyes widened with understanding. The ancients built over a point where a huge vein came close to the surface. Or so I believe. It was so obvious once you think about it. Why else would you build a city over ancient ruins? Why was there no mana in this part of the world? Ren didn't know the exact answer, but with his fungus's information that didn't quite fit, he could guess. There should be mana in this abyss too. How had they achieved such a thing? Ren didn't know, but he was certain. He had no proof, but also no doubts. After all, the best tales always hid some truth. And if he was right about the ruins, but that wasn't important now. The mushrooms glowed while Ren followed the thread of thought. It needs pure mana, he thought while studying the fractures in the core, like the kind that flows in the world's natural veins. Knowledge unfolded in his mind. The core could revive if it absorbed enough pure mana. 100,000 units exactly. With that, and using a secret technique the mushrooms whispered to him, he could recover the mantis's complete evolutionary line. His eyes shone with new determination. An extra beast, eventually a bronze beast. It would mean being able to venture deeper into dangerous territory, collect more valuable materials, and work for longer periods without succumbing to mana excess. But first, he studied the core carefully. I need to feed it. Injecting his own mana was out of the question. It would be a waste considering his current limitations. But the mines, the mushrooms pulsed while Ron began calculating. At his current mine level, the core would absorb 4 units daily. At that rate, it would take decades. But if he could find a small mana vein deeper down, one his knowledge told him exactly where to find. His eyes narrowed as he did the calculations. 10 days, he whispered, the plan taking shape in his mind. I just need to find a way to get it down there without dying. Ren stood and began organizing his materials. If he was going to do this, he would need a perfect plan. 10 days, he whispered, the plan taking shape in his mind. I just need to find a way to get it down there without dying. Ren stood and began organizing his materials. If he was going to do this, he would need a perfect plan. The mana vein was there, 300 meters beneath the academy. It wasn't large like the ones feeding the abyss, but it would serve his purpose. The problem was how little time he could endure down there. 15 minutes maximum before the mana overloaded him. Near the vein, it would be even worse due to the mana flow's irregularity. He needed to do it early before the day's cultivation, which meant skipping training with Lin too, which would help him to also have more strength for the small adventure. I need help, he murmured while organizing his materials. The male shadow stalker tentacles he'd saved would serve as duration extenders, but he needed something more. Hey, Min, he called to his companion, studying on his bed. Do you still have that weaver's thread? The one we got from the expedition? Min looked up from his book. Yeah, haven't traded it yet, why? Would you sell it to me? What do you want it for? Min's small snake peeked up too, its curiosity evident to run in the way it moved its flickering tongue. Projects, Ren replied vaguely. Projects, Min repeated with a knowing smile. Like those that make our room smell like death. I'll pay 50% more than what they give at the exchange. Sold. Min didn't even hesitate. Though I'm worried you're willing to pay that much. While storing the thread, Ren took out the potion Zhao had given him. The green liquid glowed softly. Then he spoke with Taro about helping him fake something. You going to skip training tomorrow? Taro asked worriedly. Not exactly, Rin smiled. I'm just going to delay it a bit. Just the morning one. Lin will kill you, Lu commented without looking up from his notes. Not if she can't find me. All three of his roommates stopped what they were doing to stare at him. You're going to try to hide from Lin? Min sounded genuinely concerned. The same Lin who found you instantly that time you hid on the roof. Or when you tried sleeping under your bed, Taro added. Or that time in the library, Lu smiled. Behind a big plant. This time is different. Rin began preparing the tentacles, wrapping them with weaver's thread and dusting them with bark stalker vitality powder. I have a plan. Oh no, Min sat up straight. Last time you said that you ended up hanging upside down in the courtyard. Lin has a routine, Rin explained while working. She always checks the same places in the same order. I just need to prepare my alibis before she arrives. You've been studying her patterns like she was a beast. Lu arched an eyebrow. She taught me to use everything at my disposal. Rin smiled. First she comes here. If she doesn't find me, she checks the dining hall, then the library, the roof, and finally the gardens. And Taro leaned in with interest. And tomorrow, Rin held up a prepared tentacle. She'll find evidence that I went to town. To town? Min frowned. But we can't leave the academy. Exactly. Rin pulled out a paper. That's why when she finds this note about a special permission and an errand. Oh no. Lu removed his glasses. You're going to forge documents. No, Rin smiled. I'm going to make it look like I was asked to. By someone who conveniently always needed an assistant to pick up materials early in the morning. Who would be so? Min stopped. No, you wouldn't. Professor Wei always asks for help with his morning deliveries. Rin continued working on the tentacles. And coincidentally, tomorrow he won't be at school. You're going to make Lin think Wei took you to town, the same Wei who hates you. Taro sounded impressed. Without Wei knowing. Lin hates him so much she won't even ask him. Lu nodded appreciatively. Brilliant and terrible at the same time. I only need a few hours. Rin began storing his prepared materials. By the time Lin discovers the truth, I'll be done. And dead anyway, Min added cheerfully. It'll be worth it. Rin stored the last tentacle. Besides, it might even work. His friends exchanged skeptical looks. Want us to prepare your funeral? Taro offered. I just need you to do something for me, Taro. Rin headed to his bed. And maybe some ice for afterward. Lots of ice, Lu corrected. And bandages. Lots of bandages. Discover hidden tales at Empire. Rin gave them an uncomfortable smile as he prepared for bed. Tomorrow will be an interesting day, and probably painful. Lin stopped in front of the Gray Wings door, her feathers partially manifesting as she checked the time. 6 in the morning, the perfect moment to wake her favorite student. Good morning, little one, she murmured while opening the door, only to find 2 deeply sleeping students and 2 empty beds. Her eyes narrowed. In the time she'd been training Ron, he'd only tried escaping this early 3 times. Where is he? She asked the sleepers. Min stirred in his bed, mumbling something about dancing snakes. Lu didn't even move. Tara wasn't there. Lin methodically searched the room. The bed was cold. He'd been gone for a while. The trunk was closed, but... Oh, her lips curved into a dangerous smile. Trying to be clever, Lin noticed something peculiar. Wei's assistant delivery uniform, normally hanging in the hallway for students who helped with deliveries, had several clasps, and one was on the floor near the trunk. So you want me to believe you took the uniform? Lin thought. Clever, but predictable. A note slightly protruded from the trunk, as if someone had hurriedly stored it. Lin carefully pulled it out. Temporary assistant for Professor Wei. Sorry, I'll be back soon for exercise. Impossible, she murmured. Wei would never take an assistant from the Gray Wing, much less. Let's check the dining hall. She headed to the dining hall, her usual second stop. At this hour, the cooks were already preparing breakfast and morning deliveries. The new assistant, the head cook nodded when asked. Passed by a while ago. Professor Wei's uniform and everything. Said he had to prepare a special delivery. Lin smiled. Rin had used the uniform to access restricted areas early in the morning. No one would question a Wei assistant. Was he planning to hide inside one of them? The library was her next stop. She found it open, unusual at this hour. Oh, the new assistant just finished organizing the delivery records. The librarian pointed to some perfectly ordered documents. Creating an alibi, Lynn examined the records. They were all correctly filed, including a materials order for today. Very efficient, though those mushrooms in his hair were quite peculiar. He's leaving too obvious a trail, Lynn thought while climbing to the roof. He doesn't want to hide. He wants me to follow. On the roof, she found another clue. A materials list with Professor Way's seal, apparently dropped here by accident. Using the system against itself, Lynn murmured, genuinely impressed. Wren had learned well. Each move was backed by official procedures. The gardens revealed the final piece. The delivery cart was in place, clean and prepared as Way always demanded. But the gardens were empty except for the gardener, who had also just seen Wren heading toward the main entrance. Lynn stopped, processing the information. That little. Lynn smiled despite herself. It was an elaborate plan, using the antagonism between her and Way to prevent her from verifying directly with him. But her eyes gleamed with understanding. All this real work is just a distraction. Lynn smiled. It was brilliant, really, making the work appear real so no one would question anything. No forgeries, no obvious deceptions. Just a temporary assistant doing his tasks. Except her eyes narrowed as her crane fully manifested. Way is out of town today. Were you really, little trickster? Except her eyes narrowed as her crane fully manifested. Way is out of town today. Were you really, little trickster? Lynn headed toward the main entrance. Had Wren really gone to town with no formal permission? Lynn observed the figure in the assistant's uniform near the main entrance. The mushrooms in his hair glowed under the dawn light, though something seemed different. Got you, little cheat, she thought while silently approaching. You can't leave without real permission, and Way isn't here to sign it, so you were trapped in the end. The figure moved strangely, as if practicing what to say. Good morning, Sir Guard. I'm here to make a delivery, he muttered to himself. No, too formal. Hi. I need to go out to know, too casual. Lynn smiled. It was almost adorable watching him so nervous. Not quite like, trouble with the script? She asked softly, right behind him. The scream that followed was definitely not Wren's. The figure turned, revealing Taro's terrified face. Obviously, fake mushrooms were precariously attached to his hair. Teacher Lynn, Taro squeaked, his voice 3 octaves higher than normal. What a terrible, delightful surprise. Taro, Lynn crossed her arms menacingly. What interesting hair accessories you've chosen. This, Taro nervously touched the fake mushrooms. It's a new fashion Wren taught me yesterday, and where is he? Ooh, Taro stepped back. Professor Way? As you know, he's out of town and couldn't finish the... Taro, yes. Your legs are shaking. Taro looked down. Traitors, he muttered to his legs. Now, Lynn smiled sweetly. You're going to tell me exactly what's happening or I'll... I can't. Taro nearly cried. I promised her I'd distract you while he was... He covered his mouth with both hands. While he what? Nothing. Taro began sweating profusely. He was just going to buy flowers. Lots of flowers for you. Because he appreciates you so much for torturing. Training him 3 times every day. Taro, yes. You're sweating so much the mushrooms are falling off. Indeed. One of the fake mushrooms slid pathetically down his forehead. They're sweaty mushrooms? Lynn sighed. How did he convince you? The night before. Come on, Taro. Wren pleaded while holding the fake mushrooms. I just need a few hours. No. Taro crossed his arms. Lynn will kill me. I'll give you my dessert for a week. Risk my life? Not even for a month of desserts. I'll help you evolve your beetle, even beyond bronze, all the way to silver. Taro hesitated. Really? I know exactly what you need to take it even further, Wren smiled. Besides, Lynn won't hurt you. You're too adorable when you're nervous. I'm not adorable, Taro protested. I'm intimidating. Min and Lu, listening from their beds, burst out laughing. Besides, Wren continued, you just have to act suspicious near the entrance. Lynn will catch you, interrogate you, and by the time she's done, I'll be back. What if she asks where you are? Tell her I went to buy her flowers. She'll kill you twice when you show up. Worth it. Rin placed the fake mushrooms on Taro's head. So, Taro sighed, looking at his reflection with the mushrooms. Fine, but this better be important. The next morning, long before dawn, Rin and Taro snuck out of their room. The hallways were deserted at such an early hour. Remember, Rin whispered as they walked. In the end, you just need to stay near the entrance. Lin will see you, interrogate you, and by the time she's done, I'll be back. I still don't understand why I have to practice what to say to the guard if I'm not even going to leave. Because you need to look nervous, Rin smiled. And that, my dear friend, doesn't come from you naturally if you're faking it. You are a terrible actor, but an awesome actor in the right conditions. I don't know whether to feel flattered or offended. In the morning, after finishing placing the clues, they stopped at the intersection leading to the mines. Good luck, Rin whispered, and thanks. The hidden tunnel Rin constantly used to dodge the guards at 100 meters remained the safest route. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed softly as he slipped through. He often worked at 150 meters, so he knew the place fairly well now. At 200 meters, the first change was evident. The common worms here were twice as large, better fed by the mana density. Their tunnels formed more complex patterns, creating true gallery networks. Past 200 meters, the greater worms began to appear, 4 times larger than their lesser counterparts. 2 fusions had transformed them into true tunnel machines, their segmented bodies glowing with concentrated mana. Each now had a complete core, capable of processing the dense ambient mana. But they were no longer the only inhabitants. Digger beetles and very rare hunter bugs lived here too. The mushrooms pulsed in warning when he reached 250 meters. Here the ecosystem changed dramatically. The first deep worms appeared, beasts the size of a cart that made the lesser worms look tiny, 8 times larger. But the most impressive began just after. At around 275 meters, the first bronze beasts made their appearance. The living tunnels, massive beetles that had evolved to turn their own bodies into mobile tunnel extensions, created gallery networks that seemed to breathe. Their shells secreted a living mineral that reinforced the walls, transforming simple tunnels into organic structures. They weren't mere tunnelers, they were bioengineers, reinforcing walls with special secretions. Natural architects, Rin murmured as he passed near one expanding a chamber. The deep and greater worms acted as workers for these superior beasts, maintaining the tunnels in exchange for the beetles, increasing protection. It was a symbiotic society, the worms executing and the beetles improving. Enjoy new adventures from Empire. At 300 meters, where his objective waited, the mana was already 16 times denser than that of the Iron Ring, the mushrooms in his hair pulsing with effort to process it. Here, the symbiotic society had made a complex web of living tunnels that beathed with a soft yellow tint, like the entrails of a huge beast. They had to make it, because something else inhabited these depths. Here, a bronze beast line reigned supreme. The mushrooms pulsed in warning when Run detected the first trace. Claw marks on the walls, so fine they seemed carved with diamond. Knowledge flowed, revealing fragments about a new species, the deep assassins. Here, a bronze beast line reigned supreme. The mushrooms pulsed in warning when Run detected the first trace. Claw marks on the walls, so fine they seemed carved with diamond. Knowledge flowed, revealing fragments about a new species, the deep assassins. The assassins were the true predators here. Their bodies, long and segmented, but with hyper-articulated elongated limbs, allowed them to move along walls and slip through narrow tunnels, while also being covered in vibration sensors that could detect the slightest movement through the rock. Their bodies, a matte black that absorbed all light, made them practically invisible in darkness. But most terrifying was their proboscis. Discover exclusive content at Empire. Like a diamond sword, Rin thought while examining one of the marks. Knowledge showed him how the beast used this lethal tool, first locating its prey, then piercing through up to 50 centimeters of rock and its prey's skin or shell, then injecting enzymes that paralyzed and liquefied internal organs to slowly suck them out. Their prey remained alive through most of the process. They seemed like a nightmare born from the fusion between an assassin bug and a hunting spider, but perfectly adapted to subterranean life. The assassins primarily hunted deep worms and living tunnels, ambushing them from the other side of walls that weren't yet reinforced. The assassins were the reason why all other beasts at this level built reinforced refuges. But nothing was completely safe. The assassins always found a weak point, a thinner section, an unprotected angle. Some abandoned tunnels showed signs of ancient battles. Walls perforated with small holes, abandoned galleries full of circular marks, remains of emptied shells. Ren had less than 15 minutes before the mana overloaded him. It was time to advance, but first he would need to ensure no killer decided to add him to its core collection. All creatures here were practically blind. Ren intensified the glow in a pulse that illuminated the distance just once. A movement caught his attention. A killer emerged from its hiding place, its nearly 5-meter body moving with disturbing grace. For white and opaque eyes, blind, glowed faintly against Ren's light, while specialized antennae tested the air for prey. The beast slid along the wall without making the slightest sound, its legs detecting vibrations that revealed the position of creatures in nearby tunnels. Its proboscis, normally folded beneath its head, briefly extended. It was almost as long as Ren was tall. A perfect predator, Ren observed fascinated as the assassin located its prey, a greater worm excavating too close while expanding a tunnel. The beast calculated the exact angle to pierce the rock. With a fluid movement, the assassin pressed its proboscis against the wall. There was no sound as it drilled, the precision such that it barely displaced material. In seconds, it had created a perfect hole toward its victim. Ren was grateful the killer was too far away and occupied to hear his steps. He stopped in a small side cavern, acutely aware that any wall could hide a lurking killer. The mushrooms pulsed, showing him was clear. The air was now much denser, charged with mana that made breathing require conscious effort. Ren advanced cautiously, each step measured while his senses adapted to the increasing pressure. The prepared Shadow Stalker tentacles absorbed some of the excess mana, but he could still feel it accumulating in his system. The tunnels here didn't look like rock caverns anymore, transforming into something that seemed less mineral and more organic. The connecting tunnels and walls had a yellowish tone that melted into deep oranges, as if he were entering the entrails of a colossal beast. That's when he saw it, a living tunnel emerging from a side gallery. Ren pressed himself against a wall, holding his breath while the beast worked. It wasn't aggressive, but at this depth, everything was potentially lethal for him. Even more so if it confused him with a small hunter bug. The advance continued. At this depth, the living tunnel's work had created a maze that seemed designed to confuse. An escape and defense system, Ren understood while carefully navigating. Ren stopped at an intersection, aware that mana was already beginning to saturate his system. The vein was close, he knew from his knowledge. But between him and his objective lay a sea of identical tunnels. A soft pulse. The illumination bounced off the walls, returning with information. Another pulse. Clearer this time, the tunnels had a pattern. The living tunnels didn't dig randomly. Their galleries followed specific rules. Like a chronology, he thought while studying the marks on the walls. The older sections returned a more opaque glow. As they approached active zones, the designs became more reflective. A third pulse revealed more. Main intersections always had 7 exits. Secondary ones, 5. Those leading to rest areas, 3. Knowledge flowed as Ren advanced. The mana vein was too powerful for creatures at this level to approach directly. The vein must be in an old, saturated zone, he reasoned. Living tunnels would avoid rebuilding near a pure mana geyser. Some must have exploded sometimes with so much energy. Following this logic, Ren began tracking back in time through the patterns. Each intersection led him to more opaque but crystal-rich tunnels. Information came in fragments as he studied the tunnel patterns. The vein periodically expelled a geyser of pure mana that crystallized into a huge crystal formation of at least 5th rank, creating a chamber that no common beast could penetrate. Only something with the power of a dragon could break that mana-saturated rock to feed. But most fascinating was what knowledge revealed about the eggs. Some emerged from the geyser itself. A living tunnel or deep killer egg would be useful, he thought, but the contract wouldn't work like that. The beast he would get would be more basic, a digger beetle like Taro's, or perhaps a hunter bug. The potential was there, but it would take time to develop. The vein he sought was very small. Knowledge whispered that in areas like this, an egg appeared perhaps every decade. The Academy probably conducted periodic dives to collect the fixed eggs they found, but few bothered to search for them. The general perception was that digger beetles and hunter bugs only reach bronze, which made their fixed eggs, though more expensive, less desired than the brown eggs the kingdom released. 50 of those came out each year, promising the possibility of a mole too with supposedly better potential. Still, it would be unlikely to find one, and his mantis was better for his first beast. The beetle was a defensive beast, and the hunter bug had good offensive but short-range abilities and was slower. The mantis was faster and had some mid-range abilities. For Ren's taste, its skill kit was more attractive. Still, having an extra egg wouldn't be bad in any case, or he could sell it. Ren continued advancing until he found it, a yellow living bridge that seemed to breathe and crossed over a deep gallery. On the other side, he could feel the vein pulsing with pure mana. But there was just one problem. A massive, deep worm rested inside the bridge, its body occupying all the space. The beast dozed, probably recovering until he found it, a yellow living bridge that seemed to breathe spanning across a deep gallery. On the other side, he could feel the vein pulsing with pure mana. But there was just one problem. A massive, deep worm rested inside the bridge, its body occupying the entire space. The beast dozed, probably recovering after excavating new galleries. Ren studied the situation. He couldn't use force. The slightest conflict would attract predators. Not that he had much force to use anyway. He also couldn't make it explode like a lesser worm because this one had a real core. He needed the worm to move of its own volition. A pulse from his mushrooms showed him the surroundings, searching for nearby tunnels and threats. Fused worms are territorial, he remembered while formulating a plan. And this one should be resting in its territory. Ren extracted the weaver's thread while studying the situation. He had no choice. He needed a cross. He tied one end of the thread to a stalactite above the bridge that would serve as an anchor point, and if he calculated the distance correctly, with precise finger hits, he began generating vibrations in the ground. Not just any pattern, but a specific one that mimicked an injured hunter bug. The kind of prey a fused worm couldn't resist. Practically no beast here could. Hunter bugs were the pre-evolution of deep assassins. If a worm or beetle could take revenge on them, they would do so without hesitation. That's why very few reached the surface if they hadn't achieved evolution along the way. The worm stirred in its sleep, disturbed by the vibrations of the intruder in what it considered its resting space. The deep worm finally awoke, irritated. The enormous beast moved almost immediately, its massive body turning toward the sound's source. Ren wrapped the thread around his hand, connected to a particularly robust stalactite to avoid it breaking. The worm approached, each segment of its body pulsing with anticipation while searching for easy prey. Ren waited until the last moment, when the beast was fully committed to the search. He pushed out from the ground, the thread tensing as his body swung over the bridge. The worm detected that there was nothing at the movement's location, but it was too late. Ren was swinging above, his feet barely avoiding grazing the beast's enormous body. He landed on the other side, just as the worm realized it had been deceived. But his landing generated a vibration. The beast changed direction with surprising speed for its size. Of course, it could transform its rear into its head. It followed Ren, its entire body vibrating with irritation. Ren didn't wait. He ran toward the cave, pulsing with the vein's light, and reached an unexcavated tunnel section, where the hard rock would slow the worm. Yet the beast followed, its massive body crushing and scraping rock and minerals in pursuit. Enjoy new adventures from Empire. Too interested, Rin thought while running. Worms normally avoided making so much noise. It shouldn't want to run directly toward the vein for too long either. Something was wrong with its persistence. In general, Rin had felt something strange in the cave from the beginning. The beasts were more excited than they should be. Constantly, a glow ahead caught his attention, the mana vein. It was close, so close. His fingers worked quickly with another piece of thread while running. If the worm caught up before he reached it, he wouldn't let it. He just had to swing again, and he'd be safe. Rin made a slip knot. The tunnel widened slightly. The worm accelerated. Rin could almost feel its exact location under the rock by the intensity with which it dug. It was the beast's most vulnerable moment, and yet it kept pursuing. Then Rin felt a different sensation in the tunnel. Something moved behind them, something that had been attracted by the commotion. The strange sensation was silence. The worm's digging was the only thing that could be heard. A sudden silence. The constant scraping of general excavation ceased, as if all creatures held their breath. All others had stopped to hide. The deep assassin emerged like a living shadow. Its body arched with lethal precision. The proboscis extended like a nightmare lance. The strike was so fast Rin barely saw it. The proboscis pierced the rock as if it were water, going through exactly above the worm. The beast froze almost instantly, its massive body paralyzed at the moment of impact. Ren stopped, his heart beating so hard he feared the sound would give him away. The assassin was just meters away, its matte black body absorbing all light while beginning the feeding process. With infinitely slow movements, Ren backed toward the vein. The assassin was completely focused on its prey. Ren deduced that the worm had been fleeing, probably after detecting the predator's presence after chasing Ren a bit, but when it wanted to stop, it was already too late. Ren continued, moving away with extreme slowness. Each step away from the assassin seemed to last an eternity. The vein glowed, tantalizingly close, but one sound, one careless movement, the sound of moving fluids filled the tunnel. The assassin had begun consuming its prey, its proboscis injecting enzymes that would liquefy the worm from inside. Ren continued backing away, every muscle tense with the effort of maintaining absolute silence. The vein's glow intensified with each step. Just a little more, but he couldn't move this slowly for so long. Ren was drenched in cold sweat. The mana was so dense it was suffocating him. The tentacles were almost saturated. He had maybe 10 minutes before the excess would overload him. He continued backing away, but the mana pressure became unbearable. Ren tried to maintain concentration, but his senses began to cloud. With trembling fingers, he extracted the last tentacle, needing to release some of the overload. The slow movement, the pain, the concentration on the tentacle, and the fear of the killer made him distracted too much, and his foot hit a loose stone. The sound, barely louder than a whisper, seemed to resound like thunder in the tunnel silence. The deep assassin turned instantly, its matte black body moving with unnatural fluidity. The slow movement, the pain, the concentration on the tentacle, and the fear of the assassin made Ren distract too much, and his foot hit a loose stone. The sound, barely louder than a whisper, seemed to resound like thunder in the tunnel silence. The deep assassin turned instantly, its matte black body moving with unnatural fluidity. With no time to think, Ren threw the tentacle. The improvised projectile flew straight toward one of the assassin's legs, beginning to absorb mana at the moment of impact. The beast recoiled, more from surprise than damage. Its senses, adapted to darkness and vibrations, hadn't expected an aerial attack. The sensation of its energy being drained at a specific point made it focus on that area. Ren didn't waste a second. His hands were already knotting the thread while the assassin was distracted. A quick jump, and his body hung far from the ground. The training with Lin and his extra bit of strength gave him enough capacity to reach quite high. The thread began to turn slowly, the tension from the initial launch creating a circular movement. Ren held his breath while the assassin searched for its attacker, its proboscis extended and ready. But Ren kept slowly rotating. That's when he saw it. The chamber opened about 10 meters below, illuminated by the glow of a colossal crystal. The formation was both beautiful and terrifying, its facets reflecting mana light in a way that made it seem alive. In the center, a hollow, the vein itself. Pure mana flowed in a silent geyser that fed the crystal's growth. And there, on a ledge near the base, 2 eggs. The first wasn't a surprise. A hunter bug, exactly one of the 2 he expected to find if he found anything. The egg had the characteristic pattern of its species, promise of a silent and lethal predator. But the second, Ren had to contain an exclamation that would have been fatal. His eyes couldn't be seen correctly. It was impossible. The egg had the unmistakable design of a lesser carbon shark. What could one day evolve into a diamond hydra? Knowledge flowed frantically while he rotated in silence, the assassin still searching below. Diamond hydras were legendary silver rank 3 creatures, so rare in history that many doubted their existence. It makes no sense, he thought while the thread kept turning. Hydras form much deeper than bugs or beetles, close to their dragon mothers in the depths. An egg like this shouldn't be here, so high up in such a small vein. The probability of a hydra egg not hatching before reaching here was infinitesimal. Unless knowledge whispered a possibility. The core of an adult hydra, collected by the highest level of assassins, passed from one to another in their territorial battles. A core that was finally released when its last possessor reached golden or platinum rank, and somehow managed to ascend high enough to be reborn. But it was speculation. It was as if there was a void in the information, a mystery his mushrooms couldn't decipher at this rank. What he did know was that he wanted it. A diamond hydra's skill set in its early levels was exceptional. Though primarily defensive, it didn't lack offensive capabilities, and its versatility far surpassed that of a hunter bug or digger beetle. While slowly rotating on the thread, Ren considered his options. If he sought speed and offensive power, the mirror mantis remained his best choice. But a hydra, even if he didn't choose it as his first, it could be perfect as a second battle beast in the future. A movement in the chamber interrupted his thoughts. A creature emerged silently from a side opening. Its body was elegant but alien. A long, sinuous neck supported 2 heads that had jaws reminiscent of sharks. It moved on 2 powerful legs and its scales. Its scales were transparent, shining like living diamonds under the crystal's light. Knowledge couldn't confirm its identity, but it was obvious. It had to be an evolved diamond hydra. Its presence radiated gold rank power, which raised a disturbing question. How could a beast of that level survive in an environment with so little mana? The answer came immediately. The hydra approached the geyser, extending one of its heads directly into the flow of pure mana. It began absorbing energy directly from a source. The pieces started fitting together in Ren's mind. A silver rank hydra with a single head must have been expelled from its territory. By luck or instinct, it found this vein. The constant flow of pure mana allowed it to survive and evolve, completing all silver ranks until reaching gold. The beast finished feeding and moved languidly toward the egg. Its body coiled around it in a protective gesture, but its movements were slow, almost lethargic. Despite the geyser, the vein was too small to keep it truly active at this superior rank. Soon it would need to return to the depths, but as he watched the beast settle, Ren understood something more. The cycle of hydras at higher ranks must be very different from deep assassins, worms, or beetles. That was his assumption, seeing the protective behavior with the egg. It seemed that egg dynamics were more complex than he had expected. Knowledge revealed more. The colored eggs containing the 3 known evolutionary line possibilities only formed when veins passed near the mothers, the dragons of each evolutionary line dwelling much deeper below. That's where brown eggs formed, for example, having bugs, beetles, and moles as options. What arrived here was different. They were cores returning to the cycle thanks to the deep assassins. These creatures collected the complete cores of their prey, displaying them as trophies on their backs. As they evolved, they fought among themselves for these collections. But upon reaching gold or platinum rank, something changed. They discarded their trophies, casting them into the depths. Most of these discarded cores were reborn as basic iron evolution in the lower levels, only to be devoured again. But some managed to ascend, transformed by their journey through mana-saturated zones. That's why most hunter bugs and digger beetles became living tunnels or deep assassins. The dense mana shaped them during their ascent. That's why there are so few young stages at this height, Ren understood. Those who managed to climb high enough had the chance to evolve along the way. It was a perpetual cycle. The assassins collected, fought, evolved, and finally released. The cores fell, were reborn, ascended, or were hunted to try again. And occasionally, very occasionally, one reached high enough without evolving. Continue your adventure at Empire. Worms were slightly different. They weren't born from eggs like other beasts. They emerged from the depths, fleeing from even deeper zones in the same way. Those who managed to reach higher levels were the survivors of a deadly race from the abyss. It was a cycle generated by the mother worm, the devourer dragon of the depths. From its skin, thousands of worms were constantly born, or so they said in the stories. His knowledge didn't reach that far yet. But where worms had no parental care, nor beetles, where assassins began collecting cores from bronze rank, hydras clearly had different behaviors beyond gold rank. Perhaps it was parental care that allowed them not to need to rise to high levels to evolve and made them so rare. But as these were behaviors of creatures not within his knowledge range, it was a missing piece of the puzzle, an aspect of the cycle that current knowledge couldn't reveal. What did hydras do in their highest ranks? Why would an egg be here next to one of higher rank when most beasts abandon their eggs to the cycle? The deep assassin kept searching, and Ren hung between two mysteries, the predator that couldn't see him and the hydra that defied everything he thought he knew about the beast-egg cycle. With careful movements, Ren extracted the flask with the potion Zhao had given him. The green liquid glowed softly as he uncorked it. It was his last defense against mana overload. The deep assassin kept searching, and Ren hung between two dilemmas, the predator that couldn't see him and the hydra that defied everything he thought he knew about the beast-egg cycle. With careful movements, Ren extracted the flask with the potion Zhao had given him. The green liquid glowed softly as he uncorked it. It was his last defense against mana overload. The taste was bitter and metallic, but the effect was immediate. The crushing pressure of mana receded, as if a window had been opened in a suffocating room. It wouldn't last long, but it would have to be enough. The deep assassin finally lost interest in its search. Its sensors detected no more movement, and the paralyzed worm promised a feast it didn't want to waste. The beast returned to its prey, its proboscis sinking back into the liquefied flesh. Now or never, thought Ren as he began descending the thread. He descended with extreme care and retrieved the stone that had betrayed him. He was now meters from the predator that had returned to the tunnel entrance. He would deal with that obstacle at the exit later. First, he had to take advantage of his luck. It was a unique opportunity, a miracle of the cycle that wouldn't repeat for centuries. Or so he thought. The chamber opened below him, the massive crystal dominating the space with its pulsing light. The hydra dozed around the egg, apparently exhausted by the effort of existing at this depth. He still had to move with perfect caution. One sound, one sudden movement, and all would be lost. If the assassin didn't kill him, the hydra certainly would. Ren studied the crystalline formation more carefully. The enormous crystal formed a natural bowl, its facets creating levels and ledges that could serve for a safer approach. I don't need to get all the way there, he thought while pulling out more weaver's thread. I just need the right position. The bowl's edge offered a perfect spot. From there, he could manipulate the thread without exposing himself too much to the geyser or the hydra. His fingers worked quickly, preparing a knot while evaluating angles. The mantis core would also need pure mana. The solution was elegant. He could leave it suspended near the geyser, allowing the flow to saturate it naturally. In 10 days, it would have absorbed enough to begin its transformation. But for that to happen, he needed the Hydra to stop feeding from the geyser's mana. The Hydra remained motionless, its two heads resting near the egg. Not really its child, he reflected while tying the mantis core to leave it suspended. The egg contained another Hydra's core, yes, but it was another that had somehow not completed the cycle and ascended here. It was more like an evolutionary sibling, part of the same line, but not direct offspring. Ren liked to think it was a species with parental care, but was it more like a strong siblinghood? Perhaps that's why the Hydra protected it, not from maternal instinct, but from lineage recognition. A Siscon Hydra? Ren shook his head at his own silly joke and continued working. Perhaps nervousness was making him think foolish things. But the dilemma was clear. He needed the Hydra to leave. And if the egg disappeared, what reason would it have to remain in this small, limiting vein? His feet touched a ledge. Pure mana flowed in the chamber, not at silver ring level, but triple the normal at this depth. Even with the potion still in effect, Ren could feel the energy trying to saturate his system. The bug egg was closer. It would be easier to reach first, safer. But the Hydra egg, the chance to understand such a rare evolutionary line. Ren took a step toward the better egg. The rock under his feet was strangely slippery, polished by years of exposure to pure mana. Each movement required total concentration. A slip here would be fatal. Another step. The Hydra breathed deeply, its body moving in a slow but steady rhythm. Ren wondered how long it spent like this, conserving energy between feedings, trapped in this endless cycle of minimal survival. The egg was within reach of his thread now. Its surface gleamed with the same tone as its sister scales, as if already containing the promise of what it could become. A sound from above, the assassin moving its prey. Ren froze, but the beast was just repositioning itself above the worm for better access. The potion still kept the mana at bay, but Ren could feel its effect beginning to diminish. Time was running out. The first throw had to be perfect. Ren breathed deeply. The knot swayed gently as he positioned it. The thread flew silently, settling right over the egg. With a soft but firm pull, the loop closed around his prize. Ren waited a moment. The Hydra didn't move. With infinite care, Ren began lifting the egg. Each centimeter was an eternity, the dead weight making the thread creak almost imperceptibly. When the egg was secure, Ren extracted the thread for a second throw. Enjoy new tales from Empire. Was it greedy? Maybe, but he wouldn't waste an opportunity like this. The bug's egg ended up in his hands a few seconds later. The core was left floating in the energy flow, immediately beginning to absorb pure mana when the Hydra would leave. In 10 days, maybe he could come in 11 or 12, as he didn't know when the Hydra would wake. With luck, it would be ready then. The Hydra moved slightly, one of its heads adjusting in sleep. Without the egg next to it, how long would it take to notice its absence? With nothing to protect, instinct would push it to seek areas with more mana, to reunite with others of its kind. This small vein would no longer have purpose for it. Ren carefully stored the second egg in his backpack, too. Now he had to get out of here. He began his careful ascent toward the cave entrance, toward the assassin. The potion was losing effect. He needed to get out of here before mana saturated his system again. One last look at the magnificent creature. Part of him felt guilty for stealing something it had been protecting, but another part knew he might be doing it a favor. The Hydra was too powerful a beast to be limited to this low-power existence. We'll meet in the depths, he thought while beginning the final ascent. When we're both stronger. Ren extracted the small stone from his pocket, the same one that had revealed his presence before. The traitorous stone would now save him. The irony wasn't lost on him as he calculated the throwing angle. Simple, he thought, feeling the egg's weight on his back. The assassin investigates the noise. I run through the tunnel. With luck, its prey will keep it close, and it won't follow me for long. But a voice in his head whispered that he should have left the second egg. 15 minutes of potion wasn't much time to ascend 300 meters, especially if he had to move stealthily. An encounter with any beast would be disastrous. Too late for doubts, he told himself while tensing his arm. The assassin remained focused on its feast, its proboscis buried deeply in the worm. The stone flew in a perfect arc, until it hit a ledge Rin hadn't noticed. The impact sound was like thunder in the silence. Instantly, the assassin launched toward it, and Rin advanced to the entrance, still silently. He had to let the assassin move a bit further until the stone bounced. Its trajectory altered, sending it directly toward the crystalline chamber. Rin watched in horror as the traitor stone rolled down the bowl, the sound amplified by the crystalline formation. Each bounce was louder than the previous one, creating a cascade of echoes that filled the tunnel. The assassin turned instantly toward the noise and froze for a moment. Rin watched in horror as the traitorous rock rolled down the bowl, the sound amplified by the crystalline formation. Each bounce was louder than the previous one, creating a cascade of echoes that filled the tunnel. The assassin turned instantly toward the noise and froze for a moment. The Hydra awoke. Its two heads rose in perfect synchronization, transparent scales gleaming as it uncoiled. For a moment, it seemed confused, as if not understanding what had awakened it. Then it noticed the egg's absence. The roar that followed made the assassin instinctively back away. The Hydra rose completely, its two heads moving in search patterns while the crystallized mana in its scales began pulsing with contained power. "Run!" Rin's mind screamed. "Run!" The Hydra turned both heads directly toward Rin, its eyes glowing as it recognized him as the egg thief. This was no longer a stealthy escape. The beast had seen him. Stealth no longer mattered. Rin ran like never before, each step resonating in the tunnels, while the Hydra's roar made the walls tremble. Knowledge flowed. Silver rank 3 Hydras could shoot power rays, concentrated beams of light. This one, at gold rank, probably had even more lethal capabilities, but knowledge didn't reach that far. A strong vibration shook the tunnels. The Hydra had begun moving, its massive body crushing rock while following its prey. Fortunately, it wasn't shooting. It needed to conserve energy. With its feeding from that small vein, each use of power meant minutes of recovery. 30 minutes, Rin calculated while running. It will need to feed after 30 minutes of intense activity with so little mana. The first obstacle appeared, the natural bridge he had crossed before. The structure trembled with each impact of the Hydra digging behind. Rin didn't even hesitate. He used the momentum from running to jump and grab the thread, the eggs bouncing on his back as he landed on the other side. A group of deep worms emerged from a side tunnel, their massive bodies momentarily blocking the path. At the Hydra's next roar, the beasts writhed in panic harder and fled in the opposite direction, crushing each other in their rush to escape. The deep assassin passed by him like a shadow, but didn't even stop to look at him. The beast ran on pure survival instinct, its prey forgotten before a much greater threat. Behind, the sound of rock being pulverized echoed in the tunnels. The Hydra wasn't bothering to follow the passages. It was creating its own direct path toward Rin. Rin ran down the now cleared path, following his steps. The potion's effects were beginning to fade, and Rin could feel energy accumulating in his system. His legs burned with the effort of climbing, each step heavier than the last. The living tunnel he had seen earlier now blocked the path, its body occupying the entire gallery. Rin stopped abruptly, trapped between the beetle and the approaching Hydra. Rin wanted to scream in frustration, but it would be dangerous if the beetle confused him with a bug for a moment and stomped on him, so he had to position himself and strike hard with his feet in a unique rhythm of the living tunnel species that suggests danger. But Rin was light, so the vibration didn't convey enough urgency. The beast turned slowly. The sound of pulverized rock approached. One of the Hydra's heads appeared in the tunnel, its scales gleaming threateningly. The beetle finally sensed the danger and began turning quickly. But it was too late. The Hydra was too close. Rin could see mana concentrating in its throat. It was considering using a ray. The living tunnel moved faster to back away, creating a small opening. Ren lunged for the space, but his foot slipped. He fell to his knees just as the Hydra fired. The ray passed over his head, impacting the living tunnel. The beast collapsed, split in two, its shell smoking. The Hydra paused for a moment, its breathing heavier. That attack had cost valuable energy. Maybe it had lost about 10 minutes of energy. Ren crawled to the other side of the tunnel through the small gap, then got up and continued running. The Hydra roared in frustration, but didn't fire again. Instead, it approached the fallen living tunnel and began devouring it, recovering some of the spent energy. Each head could consume one of the huge beetle halves in an instant. Damn, that will give about 5 more minutes of energy. It could do that all the way up, Ren thought, consuming beasts to maintain the pursuit. At 275 meters, the air was more breathable, but the mana was still dense. Another group of worms emerged from a side tunnel. The beasts froze upon sensing Ren, but the sound of the approaching Hydra sent them into panic. Ren was trapped in the middle of the fleeing worms. Their massive bodies pushed him against the walls while they writhed desperately. The Hydra's roar resonated closer. In desperation, Ren pushed between two worms, the space so tight he felt crushed. Just as he emerged from the other side, he saw the Hydra catch one of the lagging worms. One of the heads caught it with lethal precision, its jaws tearing flesh. But the other head kept the body moving while the first ate. Its eyes never stopped following Ren. At 250 meters, the tunnel narrowed. Ren could feel mana saturating his system. The potion was losing effect. His legs trembled from the effort while he crawled through a narrow passage. A section of the tunnel had partially collapsed, probably from the Hydra's vibrations. Ren crawled through the debris. Behind, the sound of destruction approached. A deep assassin appeared before Ren in the narrow tunnel. The beast hesitated, caught between its hunting instinct and its fleeing instinct. The narrow cave entrance vibrated intensely. Ren worried about another collapse. But he was lucky. The assassin completely forgot about Ren and decided to flee. Ren crawled to the cave's exit while the Hydra dug behind. His lungs burned. Mana saturated his body now that the potion no longer had effect. Each meter was a battle against exhaustion and energy overload. Ren finally emerged from the tunnel at 200 meters. Your next read is at Empire. A worm colony panicked upon feeling the vibrations, their bodies filling the tunnel in a chaotic mass. Ren had to jump over them, his feet finding small spaces between the writhing bodies. Behind the Hydra finally broke through the wall. The beast was panting now, the chase's effort beginning to take its toll. Ren took advantage to gain ground. He knew this area, turned and climbed up a not-so-light slope that led to the conventional cave entrance. 150 meters. The first guard checkpoint. The air was lighter now, but his legs felt like lead. The backpack on his back seemed to weigh a ton. His hidden tunnel offered an alternative route, so he wouldn't have to explain. No, Ren thought while continuing to climb. No time for detours. The Hydra was getting closer and closer. The checkpoint appeared before Ren, the mana lamp's light shining through the entrance. 3 guards moved hurriedly, alerted by the vibrations shaking the tunnels. Halt! One shouted when he saw Ren climbing the slope. What the hell? It's the lucky mushroom boy. Another guard recognized him, his expression transforming from surprise to anger. Why were you prowling in the lower levels? This time you really... The wall behind Ren exploded. The Hydra emerged from the dust like a nightmare made real, its 2 heads covered in blood from the beasts it had devoured along the way. Halt! One shouted when he saw Ren climbing the slope. What the hell? It's the lucky mushroom boy. Another guard recognized him, his expression transforming from surprise to anger. Why were you prowling in the lower levels? This time you really... The wall behind Ren exploded. The Hydra emerged from the dust like a nightmare made real, its 2 heads covered in blood from the beasts it had devoured along the way. One last effort. One final sprint. Ren had finished climbing the slope, having gained ground on the beast despite his exhaustion, as the beast wasn't in much better condition than him. Run! It's a gold-rank Hydra. Ren's voice cracked with desperation and fatigue. The guards exchanged skeptical looks. At this level, barely 150 meters deep. The idea of a gold-rank beast was as absurd as finding a dragon sunbathing in the academy garden. "Impossible," whispered the supervisor, his expression changing from disbelief to horrified recognition. "A diamond hydra, but they live more than 1,000 meters deep." The guards barely had time to process his words when the supervisor grabbed his arm, his ice penguin partially manifesting. The hydra roared, the sound making the mana lamps crack. One of its heads turned toward the guards while the other kept its gaze fixed on Run. The other two guards instinctively backed away. Their beasts, an earth bear and a rock mongoose, fully manifested. Both beasts were bronze rank 2, their power significant in normal circumstances but dwarfed by the terror before them. "Block the entrance," ordered the supervisor while pulling Run backward. His voice carried the authority of someone used to commanding in crisis situations. "We need to evacuate." Knowledge flowed while Rin observed the guard's beasts. Earth and rock control. The supervisor's ice penguin, Silver 2, was also a beast with range control capability. Maybe they're prepared for dead abyss beasts to contain hordes, Rin understood. The placement of the checkpoint, the specific combination of beasts, it wasn't random. They're designed for the very unlikely case of a horde. Hordes only come from the dead abyss, but loose monsters from the hordes are rarely found in the caves too. That's why they fear hordes in the caves. But they must only be here to buy time, while reinforcements arrive if dead abyss beasts ever filter into the caves. To block the path. Wait! Rin resisted when the supervisor tried to drag him further back, an idea crystallizing in his mind. "Don't take me yet. Your ice, you can use it to slow it down." "What? The slope?" Rin pointed to the ascending tunnel, while the other guards began controlling earth and rock barriers. "If you freeze the climb, it'll be harder for it to scale." The supervisor hesitated only for an instant. "Hydra's shoot light rays, don't be an idiot and come." "Look," Rin pointed. "Its movements are slower. It only has about 10 minutes of energy left at this height. It won't waste power on rays." The supervisor evaluated the suggestion in an instant. His penguin fully manifested, beginning to cover the steep climb with a thick layer of ice. "More ice," shouted Ren. "It needs to be thick enough." The ice layer grew as they ascended, becoming thicker with each breath from the penguin. "Now," he ordered his subordinates, "block the entrance." The earth bear and rock mongoose created layered barriers, compacted earth reinforced with rock formations. The sound of rock being pulverized approached. The hydra was breaking up the slope a bit to get better footing. It roared again, but the sound was weaker. Without access to new prey, each movement brought it closer to exhaustion. The hydra hit the blockade, but couldn't break it, its strength no longer the same. "It won't cross," Rin shouted over the noise. Without prey to feed on, each movement weakens it more. Another hit, weaker than the previous one. The hydra was losing strength. "It's giving up," murmured one of the guards while the impacts grew progressively feebler, hope creeping into his voice. Silence fell suddenly. The guards exchanged cautious looks. "Did it leave?" asked the one with the mongoose. Rin felt something was wrong. It was too soon for the hydra to abandon its pursuit after investing so much energy. Knowledge screamed a warning in his mind, calculating that it should still have enough power for one last. "Get down," he shouted, already diving for the ground. The power ray pierced the barriers as if they were paper, passing over their heads and leaving a trail of molten rock on the ceiling. The barrier had failed. Continue reading on Empire. Damn, we're dead. After that, only silence reigned. "No, it's over," said Ron as they slowly stood. "That ray used the last of its energy. It needs to return to its vein now." The echoes of the hydra's slow, departing steps confirmed his words. The beast was descending deeper and deeper, where the increase in mana or eating other beasts would keep it alive. The supervisor turned to Run, his expression a mixture of relief and suspicion. "You have a lot to explain, boy." But Run had fainted, his mouth foaming and his veins glowing, unmistakable sign of mana poisoning. The mushrooms in his hair flickered weakly, barely processing the dense ambient energy. Damn! The supervisor caught Ren's limp form before it hit the ground, noting the dangerous heat radiating from his small body. We need to get him out of here and give him medicine fast. Peter! He pointed to the mongoose guard. Stay on watch. What? Why me? Peter looked nervously toward the tunnel where the Hydra had disappeared, his mongoose hugging his legs. What if the Hydra? The Hydra is already going to the depths. The supervisor was already running toward the exit with Ren in his arms. Shut up and watch. But, Marco hugged his manifested mongoose tighter, both guard and beast trembling slightly. We'll be back soon, shouted the supervisor while disappearing up the upper tunnel with the bear guard. That doesn't make me feel better. Marco shouted into the empty tunnel, his voice echoing mockingly back at him. The mongoose made a sound that suspiciously resembled laughter. Don't pretend. You don't want to be here either. Marcus accused his beast, which tried to look dignified despite its obvious nervousness. A distant echo made them both jump. See? Even you're nervous. Marco pressed against the wall. Though if anyone asks, we'll say we maintained a stoic and brave watch. A new echo made them both jump and hug each other. But that doesn't mean we have to be in the middle of the tunnel. We can watch perfectly fine from behind that rock. A girl watched from the shadows in the tree, her presence almost imperceptible among the leaves. She had been following Ren since early morning, this time more out of obligation than real interest, though she was already worrying about the start of classes. Initially, she had considered following him into the mines. After all, the headmaster's recent interest in the supposedly weakest student had piqued her already high curiosity too. But she had dismissed the impulse, reasoning that Ren was likely just another poor student desperate to recover his family's investment. Another case of economic desperation. She had thought upon seeing him enter the mines. It wasn't unusual. Many low-resource students spent extra hours digging, trying to recover something. The headmaster must be overreacting, she had thought, settling into her observation post. What could possibly be special about a boy with a mere spore? Yet something about him nagged at her mind. The way he moved through the mines wasn't like other desperate students. He showed none of the random searching, the trial and error that characterized novice miners. His movements had purpose, precision. Or so she had seen during their time as classmates, and it was very strange. The hours passed without incident. The girl almost considered leaving. Her time could be better spent on other tasks. But something kept her at her post. Perhaps that strange confidence he seemed to have despite his apparent weakness. She used the time to study. Occasionally, her eyes would drift to the mine entrance, but nothing seemed amiss. The chaos began without warning. 2 guards emerged running from the entrance, carrying the boy's unconscious body. His veins glowed with a sickly radiance, and a line of foam ran from the corner of his lips. Halt! The entrance guard intercepted them. Inspection protocol. All obtained materials must be. Mana poisoning, shouted one of the guards carrying Run. Critical level. The entrance guard paled and stepped aside. You can report what was found when he wakes up. The girl straightened on her branch. The academy carefully regulated access to deeper areas, and the guards were vigilant at the entrances, keeping students above the 100-meter mark. Did he fall like 200 meters from a secret tunnel? She wondered, her mind racing through possibilities. Some forgotten passage to the depths? Or is he simply that pathetic, getting poisoned at levels everyone can tolerate? But that didn't fit with what she had observed of him. Despite his weak beast, Ren had shown surprising competence in other areas. His victory over Kai hadn't been luck, nor the illusions with the crystals. He had demonstrated knowledge that even senior students would envy. 250 meters, she calculated while watching them take the boy to the infirmary. No, even deeper to cause that level of saturation. But that was impossible. No first-year student, much less one with a spore, could survive at those depths. The beast would kill them in minutes, seconds with bad luck. The mushroom boy was proving to be a most fascinating puzzle. Her lips curved in a slight smile as she watched more guards arriving at the mine entrance. Whatever had happened below, she intended to find out. After all, Anyone who could survive what had so clearly terrified the guards was worth watching very carefully indeed. She slid a small notebook from her sleeve and began taking notes. Professor Zhao might indeed have seen something that others overlooked. At 350 meters beneath the academy, a solitary figure ascended through the tunnels. The golden hippogriff pulsed beneath his skin as he extracted another potion from his bag. Months of mapping between silver and gold rank depths, some days much deeper, had depleted his reserves, but he still had enough to keep the concentrated mana's effects at bay. The liquid was bitter, but the relief was instant. His silver rank 2 abyssal scorpion briefly manifested its claws, adjusting to the renewed energy flow. A movement in the shadows. A deep assassin emerged from a corner, probably attracted by the man's noisy steps. The beast had perfectly hidden its presence, but the hippogriff manifested its front claws through its tamer's arms, and the beast didn't even have time to extend its proboscis before being torn apart. Pathetic, he thought while continuing his ascent. These beasts were nothing compared to what he had faced in the depths. His employer had asked for a hydra core for his daughter. Any hydra, he had said, as if they were so easy to find. If he could turn it into an egg, he would multiply his payment by 10, but according to his employer's family secret technique, he needed a mana vein and a hydra alongside the core to transform it back. The records were ancient, most destroyed during the last war. No one, not even from Yano, had ventured so deep in this area in decades. Honestly, he wouldn't have survived the worst encounters either. But everything had changed since Yano discovered how to contract abyssals. Having 2 beasts was an advantage that the war against Yano couldn't ignore for long. Once the plan was complete, once the abyssal scorpions were his squad's second beast, his hand instinctively touched the bag where he kept the cores. Dozens of them, each containing the potential of an abyssal scorpion. Unlike hydras, these abyss beasts could be revived with a new secret technique and didn't need a vein in the mother creature. But he had delayed too long searching for hydras. He thought it would be easier to search for an egg directly, but weeks of searching in the gold ring had been a waste of time. None had eggs. They weren't easy opponents either. But still he had to descend from those 1,000 meters. 1,000 meters more. The 2,000 meters had been hell. The platinum hydras were territorial and ruthless. And they weren't the only beasts. The superior assassins were a nightmare. He had almost died 3 times before deciding to risk everything. 3,000 meters. The diamond ring. His potions barely kept him conscious at that depth, and fighting was impossible his whole life, depending on stealth. The hippogriff and scorpion suffered from mana excess, but he had no choice. Luck finally smiled on him, as he quickly found an 8-headed diamond hydra guarding eggs. The beast was monstrously powerful, but also predictable in its sleep routine. One moment of carelessness was all he needed to steal one. Or so he thought, but one head saw him. The escape had been frantic. He had to hide in many places, spent almost all his high-level potions staying alive while ascending. And in the end, he had to return the egg. Luck finally smiled upon him, as he quickly found an 8-headed diamond hydra guarding eggs. The beast was monstrously powerful, but also predictable in its sleep routine. One moment of carelessness was all he needed to steal one. Or so he thought, but one head saw him. The escape had been frantic. He had to hide in countless crevices and abandoned tunnels. He spent almost all his high-level potions just staying alive while ascending. And in the end, he had to return the egg. When he finally escaped and was returning to the surface defeated, having endured insane temperatures that only thanks to his gold beast he could withstand, and that could be called torture, his body still ached with the memory of that heat. Having suffered the constant stalking of powerful beasts, Luck finally smiled upon him. This time for real. He found that small vein at 350 meters, perfect for his purposes. He couldn't believe it. Below he had found 3 others, as they were more common the further down, but all were guarded by beasts leagues above their real depth rank. Impossible for him to defeat. He was sure not even the ridiculous Platinum King of Yano could defeat them. Small mana vein outlets were extremely rare at that height, but there it was. So, he returned to the depth of 1,000 meters for 2 silver rank hydras, difficult to find without golden rank company, but much easier to find and defeat than stealing the egg. If he had known there would be a vein, he would have done this from the beginning. He eliminated the first to obtain its core and weakened the second. Worthy opponents even one rank below him, but manageable thanks to him being a double tamer. It was easy to drag the weakened one with his griffin to feed from the vein, and to keep it guarding and molding the core until it became an egg while he obtained more scorpion cores. Everything had been meticulously calculated. The core would need weeks to recover enough energy to become an egg next to the Hydra. The Hydra would guard until he returned with the rest of the cores. Taking would be easy when it had low energy, even if it had reached gold rank. But now, the next stretch of tunnel showed signs of recent activity. Fused worms and living tunnels had been excavating new routes, expanding territory. But something wasn't right. The excavation patterns were erratic, as if the beasts had been fleeing. Claw marks and pulverized rock told a story of panic and hasty escape. His steps accelerated. No, he thought while running. It's too soon. His calculations had been precise. The silver Hydra should barely have reached gold. The egg should have barely formed. It couldn't have hatched. Worry grew when he found the first signs of massive destruction. Demolished walls, collapsed tunnels, traces of energy discharged against rock. Beast bodies lay scattered, some partially consumed. The Hydra had been hunting, spending energy it shouldn't have. Someone had interfered. Someone had provoked the Hydra to spend energy it shouldn't have in a chase toward the surface. After observing them for so long, attempting the same thing, he knew there could only be one reason. Someone had stolen the egg. When he reached the geyser chamber, he stopped dead. Empty. The massive crystal was still there, pulsing with pure mana. But there was no sign of the Hydra or the egg. He hated being right this time. Impossible. The hippogriff's wings manifested, reflecting their tamer's fury while examining the empty chamber. So much effort, so many resources spent, so many risks taken, all ruined because some idiot had stumbled upon his experiment before time. Who would have thought the mana vein would be so close to an exterior entrance? But there was no point in being angry. Fury was replaced by cold determination. He would find a responsible party. And when he did, the scorpion manifested its plates while he began the ascent. The work his king and Yino had given him was too important to allow interference. His princess would obtain that Hydra, and the cores must reach their destination. Yino must not suspect anything until it was too late. But at least he could go out for a while to take in the sunlight and recover his egg. Stealthy. The girl in the tree decided to investigate. The entrance guard didn't even notice her pass. Shadows were her natural allies, though not in the way many would assume. As always, her beast could transport her to any point in her line of sight, a gift far more versatile than most beasts, though she wasn't the only one who could do it. Her two cousins in class could too. How funny it had been that it ended up like this for all three. So much effort to keep ourselves hidden, she thought while descending through the first levels. Her group had carefully dispersed throughout the classroom, mixing with normal students, subtly exchanging handmaidens when forming teams. And yet, a sigh escaped her lips. All that precaution had been useless when the enemy kingdom's eyes had so easily identified 4 of their 6 main targets in one classroom. Though, without doubt, Klein's group were idiots bad at hiding it. The last 2 of them would probably be discovered soon too, at this rate. The mine's upper level was practically deserted. Students had exhausted the accessible veins. The few students who usually dug weren't here this early. The mushroom boy had caused quite a stir, but she wouldn't hear gossip because there was almost no one, unfortunately. At 100 meters, nothing changed. The mana wasn't bothering her yet either. Her beast, though technically iron rank, was an exceptional specimen, the type that only the most privileged families could afford. At 150 meters, she found the first signs of something extraordinary. The descent tunnel had been blocked, but the barrier showed signs of a devastating impact. Rock melted and crystallized. A beam attack, it seemed from a high-rank beast. A guard hidden behind the rocks, quite frightened. The slope was frozen. She had to look through the gap and appear far away, so he wouldn't see her, though he really wasn't paying much attention. The guard was more occupied trembling and hugging his beast with unintelligible murmurs. Had it really gone down so far? How could someone with a spore survive that? She wondered while silently advancing. She thought it would just be another case of juvenile stupidity, but maybe this hadn't had anything to do with him. Had it really gone down so far? How could someone with a spore survive that? She wondered while silently advancing. She thought it would just be another case of juvenile stupidity, but maybe this hadn't had anything to do with him. The destruction became more evident as she descended. At 250 meters, the mana grew denser. Her beast was superior to most in its rank, but even it had limits. She could already feel the pressure building, and the fused worms at this depth were truly massive, their segmented bodies casting grotesque shadows in the dim yellow light. The tunnels here were wider, the work of greater worms and living tunnels. But it seemed the enormous beast had hastily abandoned their galleries, half-built structures telling the story of a panicked flight. Something had scared even these territorial creatures from their domains. One suddenly emerged from a hole and nearly crushed her against a wall, forcing her to perform 2 consecutive blinks to evade its segmented body. The effort made her stop to catch her breath behind a rock formation, the mana pressing against her senses like a physical weight. When she was given her mission, she hadn't expected to do this kind of thing. The worst part was that no one would know. No one except her handmaidens, of course. The thought almost made her smile. The girls everyone believed were simple, noble followers were much more than they appeared, cousins and handmaidens. 3 handmaidens for the 3 cousins, playing their parts perfectly in 2 teams. How had they already found the classroom, class, and school they were in? Was there a skilled spy in the school? Though the constant exchange of groups, pretending not to know each other. It was an entertaining game of actresses and also served as study for their future lives in high noble positions. Learning to act and be a spy was part of why she was here. After all, watching her cousin was her original mission. Though lately the headmaster, the only adult who knew the truth, seemed more interested in knowing about the mushroom boy than her cousin and the king's daughter. It was fine. She wouldn't have been able to fulfill the real mission anyway. She loved her cousins, besides. Her cousins had always been observant, even when pretending not to be. The mission would have failed. So the mission to watch her in was better. She could take it more seriously and didn't have to lie in the reports. But this no longer had anything to do with her in either. How could he have reached so far down with just a spore? Impossible. This couldn't have been his doing. My objectives seemed to change too quickly. But I have to find out what happened here. At 275 meters, she found the first signs of deep assassins, proboscis marks on the walls, and remains of consumed prey. But something had driven them away. The territorial beasts had abandoned their usual hunting grounds. At 300 meters, the trail of destruction reached its climax. The mana was a bit denser now. Each blink required more concentration, and the rest periods between each use grew longer. A deep assassin emerged from a corner, its proboscis extended. She remained completely still. Deep assassins didn't hunt by sight. They depended on detecting vibrations, and right now, she wasn't generating any. The assassin moved slowly, its sensors sweeping the area. Her previous steps must have alerted it. When the beast came too close, she panicked, took a step back, and used her ability, appearing several meters beyond. The assassin advanced to the location of the last step and stopped, confused. Its prey's vibrations had completely disappeared. The beast began moving in a search pattern, its sensors working methodically. She waited, studying its behavior. The assassin approached again. This time, when she transported, she did it behind a rock formation she had been studying, but it wasn't perfect. The sound of her landing was muffled, but not far enough. The assassin felt it. She needed a more distant target to lose it. The beast turned instantly toward the new vibration, its proboscis cutting through the air where she had been a second before. Her next blink took her to a larger tunnel, and she ran. The assassin pursued her, guided by her footsteps' vibrations. The signs of destruction were more evident here, pulverized walls and marks of recent combat. The assassin kept chasing her, but something made it stop. Its sensors detected something else, something that made the beast instinctively back away. A roar shook the tunnels. The girl, not having to worry about the assassin now and confident in her skills, peered cautiously around a corner. A hydra, its two heads covered in recent wounds. Her mother had told her about them, but two heads meant gold rank. What was it doing so high up? Normal hydras only had one head and lived at around 1,000 meters underground in the zone beneath the school. That was all that appeared in modern records. Information about multi-headed ones were relics of an earlier age, mentioned in texts so ancient that no one in Yano had bothered to verify. Her uncles or her father could have done it. Her father definitely had the power to obtain a hydra egg, but their interests had led them down other paths, to beasts they considered better. No one had wanted the hard task, or risk their life, if even a little, in an expedition beyond 2,000 or 3,000 meters of depth, just for the possibility of finding a hydra egg. Its scales, beautiful as diamonds, gleamed weakly while it faced a figure she hadn't noticed before. The man, if it was a man, had two beasts. The hydra attacked with one of its heads while the other tried to charge a ray. The man blocked the attack with his claws, the impact making the rock beneath his feet crack. She remained hidden, observing. The hydra was weakened, its movements slower than they should be, and the ray in its second head barely managed to form sparks. The man, on the other hand, seemed furious. "Where is it, idiot?" His voice resonated in the chamber. "How did you let them steal the egg? Now you'll be my new egg. A plan B." The hydra responded with another attack, but it was obvious it was rapidly losing strength. The man dodged and counterattacked with a brutal combination of his two beasts. Then, the golden hippogriff manifested completely outside his body, its 5-meter form filling the chamber. The abyssal scorpion remained fused with him, its influence evident, the mutations it caused different from anything she had seen in Yano. Yano, she thought while observing the mutation patterns. Father told me that only they have perfected fusion with abyssal beasts. He's like those from the attack with Professor Zhao. The golden hippogriff manifested completely outside his body, its 5-meter form filling the chamber. The abyssal scorpion remained fused with him, its influence evident in the way his body had transformed. The mutations it caused were different from anything she had seen in Yano. They weren't subtle and stylized like their kingdom's methods. These were more bestial, as if he was becoming the beast rather than merely controlling its power. Yano, she thought while observing the mutation patterns. Father told me that only they have perfected fusion with abyssal beasts. He's like those from the attack with Professor Zhao. The hippogriff launched forward with impossible speed, its massive form moving with a grace that defied its eyes. The hydra tried to defend itself, but its movements were already too slow. In an instant of perfect violence, the griffin's claws cut cleanly through one of the hydra's diamond necks. The girl held her breath, watching in horrified fascination. A hydra's scales were legendary for their hardness, said to be impenetrable by normal weapons. That this man's beast could slice through them so easily. The head fell with a dull thud while blood fountained from the severed neck. The hydra roared with its remaining head, a sound of agony and fury that echoed through the chamber. It will die soon, the girl realized. What a waste, she thought while watching the magnificent beast stagger. She herself had been lucky. Her own beast was superior by current standards. But seeing this understudied creature, its beautiful gleam, even in its moment of defeat, it was time to leave. She had enough information. If the man was strong enough to kill a two-headed hydra, the girl began her own ascent, processing what she had witnessed. The headmaster needed to know about this. The presence of someone from Yano with beasts of that level, the hydra, the mentioned egg. In her last glance at the scene, she saw something that made her blood freeze. The man had slightly turned his head, his eyes focusing for an instant on the spot where she had been observing. She began blinking backward, using her ability to move between visual anchor points. One blink, then another, each taking her further from the battle. Her heart pounding. He had noticed her, perhaps not clearly, but he had sensed her presence. The light filtering through the infirmary window made Ren blink. His head throbbed, but the effect of the potion they had given him was making the pain fade gradually. Finally, Taro almost jumped from his chair. "Are you okay? I thought you had died." "What?" Rin tried to sit up, but the world spun momentarily. "Stay still." Taro gently pushed him back to the bed. "The nurse said mana poisoning is no joke." "What were you thinking? Why are you here? The class is—" "Did your brain melt? Wei isn't at school today, remember?" Taro resettled in his chair. "And Lin left me here to wait for you to wake up and wait for punishment too. When she found out I helped you escape training." "Lin already knows about—" "Oh yes," Taro grimaced. "I confessed everything when she started threatening to triple my training and fail me in the battle unit. We were on our way when we saw you being carried out of the cave by the guards. But by then, they were already bringing you to the infirmary." Rin closed his eyes, processing the information. "How angry is she? Let's say when you return to training, you'll wish you had died from poisoning." "Fantastic. And speaking of that," Taro leaned forward. "What the hell happened down there?" The guard seemed really shaken up. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" Taro raised an eyebrow. "Run." You were foaming at the mouth. Your veins were glowing brighter than your mushrooms. They carried you running to the infirmary. "I need a favor." "Oh no." Taro crossed his arms. "You're not changing the subject that easily. It's important and urgent." Run tried to sit up again, this time more slowly. "I need one of the processed crystals for my room. For today's cultivation before Lin returns, and I lose the whole day suffering." Taro looked at him as if he had grown a second head. "You're joking, right?" "No, I'm serious. You just woke up from mana poisoning." "Exactly." Rin lowered his voice. "My body is more receptive now that the potion just finished its effect. It's the perfect moment. The perfect moment to do what? Die. Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic?" Taro stood up, his beetle briefly manifesting from agitation. "You almost died?" "Shoo." Rin looked to one side. "The nurse will throw you out if you shout." "Good. Maybe she should throw your brains out too, since you're clearly not using them." "Taro." "No." His friend shook his head. "I'm not going to help you kill yourself. I've had enough with lying to Lin. Do you know how terrifying she is when she's angry?" "I do know." "I'll owe you one. You owe me like 50, and I'll take you to gold rank." Rin smiled weakly. "Please." Taro stared at him for a long moment, then looked aside, feigning disinterest. "I don't believe you, but fine. If you die, I get your stuff." "Deal." "And what you have in the bank." "Now you're abusing." Taro sighed dramatically. "Fine. What do you need?" "The usual processed crystal." Rin lay back down. "And one more thing." "What?" Rin smiled mysteriously. "A hydra." Lin frowned while the guard finished his story. "Are you sure?" "Completely." The supervisor nodded. "Two heads, transparent scales. I've never seen anything like it. And for it to be so close to the surface." "And you say it was chasing Rin specifically?" "Followed him until it had to return from lack of energy." The boy must have really bad luck for a beast of that level to waste so much energy in a place without mana in a chase. Or maybe it was good luck because he survived. He even got us out of the initial surprise and suggested how to stop it. An interesting kid, shame about his beast. I guess he does have very bad luck, without doubt. Lin processed the information. Something didn't add up. Rin wasn't weak, but his beast was, even with all his training. How could he have found a hydra? How deep had he gone? And if that was the case, how had he survived so long at that depth? "Thank you for your time." She turned to leave when something caught her attention. A presence in one of the nearby trees. This wasn't the kind of concealment a normal student would use. There was something semi-professional about it. Lin took off, running to the guard's surprise. The presence vanished suddenly, as if it had never been there. Except Lin knew that sensation. Her crane partially manifested its wings and slightly elongated her legs while following the trail. Her beast's enhanced perception tracking the faintest disturbances in the air. A flash of movement to her right. Someone appeared for an instant before vanishing again. "Interesting," Lin murmured. The jumps were becoming more abrupt now, almost clumsy in their haste. Whoever it was, they were more concerned with speed than subtlety. Another flash, this time to her left. Lin adjusted her course. her crane helping her maintain the pace while analyzing the pattern of movements. "Why the rush?" she whispered while following the flashes of movement, her experienced eyes noting how each jump seemed to cost the fleeing figure more effort than the last. The chase led them toward a more densely wooded section. Clever, Lynn had to admit it, but not enough. The girl staggered upon appearing on the last branch before the administrative building. Her jumps had become clumsy, each transportation consuming more energy than the previous one. One last jump, she thought while focusing on the director's window. Her beast protested, "Too many jumps in too little time, especially after the strain in the depths." "Your jumps are terrible today. I didn't teach you to," the director began, having perceived her long before she arrived. When she appeared inside the office, her legs gave way beneath her. She held onto the edge of the desk to avoid falling. The director rose alarmed. "What happened?" "I saw." "Sit." The director quickly moved a chair toward her, his concern evident. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head while dropping into the chair. "Just tired. Too many jumps." "Are you sure?" "Yes. I was following the mushroom boy as you asked." She began, her breathing still agitated. "He entered the caves this morning." "The caves?" The director frowned, but then remembered. "Ah, Wei is out today," his expression becoming understanding. "Economic troubles. Wouldn't be the first student try to recover their investment, working extra in the mines. But I don't see how that's reason to." "It's not that." The girl shook her head. "They carried him out unconscious. Mana poisoning." "What? How far did he go?" "But that's not the important part either," she interrupted. "Yeah, I know." She managed between heavy breaths. "An agent in the caves, about 300 meters deep." The director straightened immediately. "What?" The boy went down to 300 meters. The director almost shouted, then visibly controlled himself. "And you followed him there?" The girl nodded. "Partly yes. I don't know how far down he fell. They carried him out unconscious. It must have been coincidence. Then ending in mana poisoning. But that's not the important thing." "Of course it's important." The director began pacing the office. "You were supposed to just watch a normal boy from a safe distance. If something had happened to you, your father would have." The Yino agent had two beasts, a gold rank hippogriff and an abyssal scorpion. The director stopped dead. "Explain." "Two beasts, a double tamer. And the scorpion mutation was unmistakable. Only Yino has perfected that technique." "Did you discover what he was doing so close to the academy?" "He was fighting a hydra with two heads." The director visibly paled. "A gold rank hydra? At 300 meters depth? Now you will tell me you engaged in combat." "No," she quickly denied. "I stayed hidden." The agent cut off one of the hydra's heads. He was furious, looking for something. Mentioned an egg. The director approached his territory map, his mind working rapidly. "Did he see you?" "Almost. At the end. I think he sensed my presence." "By all the dragons, how could you not?" The director stopped himself, remembering who he was talking to. "This goes beyond watching a suspicious student. I shouldn't have allowed." With all respect, she straightened in her chair. "This is what I'm training for. Your father asked me to give you opportunities to improve your espionage skills." The director looked at her seriously. "Not to put you in the line of fire of a territorial conflict. You could be a noble house spy or in the kingdom of Yino when your father give your hand. Not in the deep caves at 10 years old. You put yourself in great danger and I've improved. Nothing is 100% safe. I managed to follow the boy, discover the agent, and escaped without being detected." "Well, almost." The director sighed. She was kind of right, but the idea that something might have happened to her, the repercussions would have been catastrophic. "Go to Professor Yang," he finally said. "Tell him to start safeguarding the students of all years and alert the teachers. Defense protocol." She stood up, her legs firmer now. "Will you go alone first? If Yino is moving pieces of that rank so close to the academy, they must have a bigger plan. Go with Yang, then rest. You've done enough for today." The girl nodded and headed for the door. "And—" The director stopped her, his tone softer. "Good work. Though I prefer if next time you didn't risk so much." A small smile appeared on her lips as she left. She knew she would keep taking some risks. It was part of her training, and after all, she loved being a spy. The director waited for the door to close before taking out his special communicator. A Yino agent, a two-headed hydra, and always in the middle of everything. The mushroom boy had bad luck to always be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Outside, Lynn observed from her tree, remaining perfectly still while processing what she had heard. A student trained by the director, just as I train Ren. So it wasn't just my student doing foolishness, she thought while watching the director make his calls. An enemy agent in our territory? The question is, what did you really find down there, Ren? Here you go. Taro pulled out the crystal wrapped in black cloth and the tentacle from a bag. And the other things you asked for. Ren took only the tentacle and crystal with trembling hands. And did you find them too? Yes, Taro nodded, nervously watching the infirmary door. But I still think this is a terrible idea. If she arrives before you are done, just don't let them interrupt me for a few minutes. I'm faster at the process now and quieter. Ren turned to look at the busy nurse, unwrapped the crystal, and positioned the tentacle over his stomach. He breathed deeply before beginning the absorption. Ren took only the tentacle and crystal with trembling hands. And did you find them too? Yes, Taro nodded, nervously watching the infirmary door. But I still think this is a terrible idea. If she arrives before, just don't let them interrupt me for a few minutes. I'm faster at the process now and quieter. Ren turned to look at the busy nurse, unwrapped the crystal, and positioned the tentacle over his stomach. He breathed deeply before beginning the absorption. The pain was immediate and intense, burning through his system like liquid fire. His veins began to glow as mana flowed through his system, creating intricate patterns under his skin. The tentacle worked frantically, absorbing the excess where the veins threatened to burst, its movements precise despite the chaotic energy flow. But after a few minutes, Taro finally couldn't hide the glow in Ren's veins from the nurse with his body anymore. "What are you doing?" The nurse burst into their cubicle, her eyes widening with horror. "Stop immediately." "He can't." Taro interposed himself in her path, arms spread wide. "He's cultivating. If you interrupt him, he could get hurt. He just suffered mana poisoning, and his veins are glowing again." The nurse tried to get around Taro, her professional concern evident. "He needs medicine now. He's perfectly fine." Taro moved to block her again, almost tripping over a small table in his enthusiasm. "Just look. Step aside, young man." The nurse pulled out a potion. "I need to give him this." No. Taro waved his arms dramatically. "No potions. It would ruin the whole process." The nurse tried to push Taro's arm aside, who responded by hugging her tight, his face reddening at his own boldness. "This is ridiculous." The nurse tried to remove Taro, who responded by spinning and hugging her from behind. "I am his designated bodyguard." Taro continued hugging while the girl dragged him, officially appointed like 5 minutes ago. Meanwhile, Rin struggled to maintain concentration. The crystal was almost completely absorbed, but each second was a battle against searing pain. The tentacle moved constantly, following the points where mana threatened to saturate his veins with deadly precision. "Just a little more," he shouted through clenched teeth. "See," Taro pointed dramatically toward Ren. "Just a little more. He's a patient recovering from poisoning." Ren let out a final gasp as the crystal finally dissolved completely. The tentacle made one last pass over his veins before becoming completely saturated. "Done," he sighed, falling back against the pillows. Taro and the nurse stopped mid-drag fight. "See?" Taro smiled triumphantly. "Everything under control." The nurse quickly approached to check on Ren. Her eyes widened in surprise when she noticed his vitals were perfectly normal. Better than normal, in fact. "This is impossible," she murmured while checking his pupils. A moment ago, he was on the verge of collapse from mana saturation. Cultivation can be like that. Rin smiled weakly, full of surprises. "And reckless idiots," added Taro, but he was smiling too. The tension in the room finally broke. The nurse even let out a small laugh while storing her and used potion. "It's been a great day," Rin stretched satisfied. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed with renewed energy. The best, Taro nodded. Escaped training, survived poisoning. And I hugged a pretty nurse, he proclaimed proudly. The nurse gave him a gentle tap on the nose. Very gallant, little one. But I'm a bit old for you. A shadow appeared in the doorway. The smile froze on Run and Taro's faces. Color drained from their cheeks, so quickly that the nurse almost pulled out her potion again. Lynn stood in the threshold, her expression unreadable. So, her voice was dangerously soft. Who escaped from training? What were you thinking? Lynn paced in front of Ren's bed. How did you trick the guards? I didn't trick anyone. Ren tried his best innocent face. I just took a shortcut. Lynn pinched his cheek. Hard. Ow, ow. All right. Ren rubbed his sore cheek. I have a small secret tunnel. Sometimes I go down to 150 or 200 meters. To get crystals. A secret tunnel? Lynn's eyes narrowed. With all those minor and common worms around? With a beast that can barely process mana at that depth. It's not so dangerous if you know the worm's patterns and only stay there a while. Ren avoided her gaze. Besides, I was looking for something special for you. What thing? A crystal flower. Ren drew the shape in the air with his fingers. It's a very rare formation. The crystals grow in the shape of petals, but finding one is like finding a 5-leaf clover, completed Lynn, still skeptical. Exactly. But no luck again. I thought I'd have it in the new vein I found. Ren looked back. Taro, did you bring option B? Taro cautiously peeked his head in. The flowers? Yes, here. Lynn blushed slightly at seeing the small bouquet, but her expression hardened immediately. Her hand descended in a precise chop on Ren's head. Ow! The truth, she demanded. What did you really go looking for? It was for the flower. Ren rubbed his head. Why does no one believe me when I try to say thanks? Maybe because the last time you tried to say thanks, you also ended up trying to escape training. Lynn extended her hand. Show me what you found. I didn't find the flower, just the usual. Ren pointed to the shadow stalker skin bag that Taro had brought. Just some crystals and deep earth. You can check. Lynn examined the bag's contents. Indeed, there were only common crystals and some dark earth. All this risk for this? She shook the bag. Going so deep you ended up with mana poisoning? I need to gather a lot for my cultivation, Ren shrugged. And the crystals? Then Lynn interrupted him, her voice dangerously soft. What was all that about the Hydra? The color drained from Ren's face. Taro, who had been listening from behind, almost dropped the small bouquet. The what? The Hydra lay motionless, its single remaining head lifeless. The man approached the body. At least it won't be a total waste, he murmured while beginning the extraction. A Hydra core could become an egg again. He just needed another silver rank Hydra and wait. Keep living in the damn caves for at least 10 extra days. Eating that garbage. Defecating and sleeping in the caves. To hell with it. I'm going to recover that egg. The griffin's claws sank into the crystallized skin, searching for the exact point where the core rested. To hell with it. I'm going to recover that egg. The griffin's claws sank into the crystallized skin, searching for the exact point where the core rested. It shouldn't be too difficult to recover it, but he couldn't afford to lower his guard. Not after sensing someone watching him, that subtle presence that had almost escaped his notice. The claws found their target. The Hydra's core pulsed weakly, its power still active even after the beast's death. Its last breaths resonating with diminishing strength. Someone was there, he thought while working. The mana marks in the air were subtle, small distortions where someone had transported themselves, like ripples in an invisible pond. A will-o'-the-wisp spirit, a mineral light fairy, a shadow wolf. All three were possibilities, but they had something in common. They were very expensive beasts, the kind only the truly privileged could afford. Well, the wolf depended on luck, but was still quite expensive. The core finally yielded to his expert touch. Even if for some reason he couldn't recover the egg, this would be his insurance. Transforming his mouth into the scorpion's, he took a large piece of the Hydra's mana-rich flesh and consumed it, feeling the power course through his mutated body. The pathetic monsters at this depth would feast on the wounds he'd left in the Hydra's body. Some would surely rank up. They didn't deserve it. Just like the idiot who stole the egg didn't deserve it either. He stored the core in his backpack and began his ascent. The trail of the person who had watched them was clearer now that he approached the spot where he'd sensed the presence, small points where space had been briefly distorted by mana. Though honestly, it wasn't necessary. Before him, the destruction the Hydra had caused in its pursuit also marked a quite clear path. Pulverized walls, tunnels violently widened, telling the story of a desperate chase. Could it have been the same person? He wondered while climbing. At 200 meters, he found the first signs of regular occupation, methodically worked tunnels, tool marks. He was entering mine territory. The frozen slope appeared before him at 150 meters. It seemed they had wanted the Hydra to give up the chase. An improvised but effective idea. The ice was thick enough to make ascending complicated even for a beast of his level. But the most interesting thing was what he sensed on the other side. A presence hidden among the rocks. Weak, barely perceptible from this distance, bronze rank probably. The scorpion stirred, eager to eliminate the witness. No, he thought while studying the situation. Could have information. He pulled out his map, calculated his position, and overlaid it with another that his employer had obtained from the city of Yano, studying his location carefully. The Central Academy, he realized with surprise. We're under one of Yano's most prestigious academies. A smile formed on his lips. If the egg had made it up here, maybe recovering it wouldn't be difficult. An institution full of weak students, with only a few professors dangerous to him. But then that presence could have been a rich student. It was particularly weak and didn't seem to be hiding its mana. The presence on the other side of the slope moved slightly. A miserable schoolguard, perhaps. Someone in charge of stopping students, dealing with wretched worms, or delaying hordes, surely. Even better, someone who had probably seen everything that happened. His scorpion fully manifested its tail, abyssal venom dripping softly. Tamer asked some questions. You see, Ren tried his best innocent expression. I was looking for the flower for you when I heard a roar and a strong vibration. I tried to return to my tunnel, but it had partially collapsed. Lin kept her eyes fixed on him, her expression skeptical. So, I had to take the long way. Through the main slope, though I knew the guards would scold me, Ren continued, avoiding her gaze. And well, that's when the Hydra saw me. The Hydra saw you? Lin crossed her arms. But it was very tired, he added quickly. Could barely move. That's why I could escape. And if you only did that much, then why did you have such strong mana poisoning? Ren started sweating. The mushrooms in his hair pulsed nervously while he searched for another credible explanation. Stay tuned with Empire. Well, you see, when I was... The sound of hurried footsteps in the hallway interrupted him. A group of students ran past the infirmary. Luna appeared in the doorway, her breathing agitated. Everyone to the shelters, she announced, her usual composure replaced by contained urgency. Master Yang is evacuating the students. Taro, who had been pretending to be invisible in a corner, straightened up. Evacuating? What? Luna ignored him, her eyes fixed on Lin. Something silent passed between them. I suspected as much. Lin stood up, her expression becoming serious. It's time. Time for what? Rin got up, but Lin gently pushed him toward Luna along with Taro. You too. She pointed to Run and Taro. Go with Luna to the shelters. No detours, no secret tunnels. She looked meaningfully at Run, straight to the shelters. But, Rin began, this is not negotiable. Lin's tone left no room for discussion. I'm going with Yang. Luna, make sure they reach the shelter. Luna nodded while waiting at the door. Rin called before she left. What's happening? With luck, nothing, she responded without turning. With bad luck? Well, that's why we have shelters. Teacher Lin, Taro shouted. Yes. Do you still want the flowers? Lin disappeared down the hall without answering. Move, Luna ordered. And no walks like during the excursion. Mushroom. It's not time for your secret adventures. Ren and Taro exchanged looks while following Luna. More students ran through the hallways, some scared, others simply confused. Hey, Taro whispered while they walked. You think this has to do with your... Ren shook his head, silencing him. I don't know, but it shouldn't be, if Indiana went back down. But lie about it, he whispered. Something was happening. Something serious enough for Lynn to leave her interrogation unfinished. And, somehow, he had the feeling it was related to the strange behaviors in the depths. The tunnels were too quiet. The agent advanced cautiously. The guard he had interrogated was left lying motionless on the frozen slope. He had resisted until the end, not releasing information even when the abyssal venom had begun to corrode his organs. Tougher than he looked. The hippogriff remained manifested, its senses alert. The scorpion pulsed restlessly under his skin, the abyssal mutations making it more sensitive to threats. Not a single guard, he thought while approaching the exit. The checkpoints were empty, the mana lamps still lit, as if everyone had suddenly disappeared. Daylight filtered through the mine entrance. Too bright after so long in darkness, he didn't exit. His eyes would need time to adjust. He stopped several meters from the exit, keeping to the shadows. His beasts tensed, detecting something they couldn't fully identify. The silence was unnatural. Not even the wind seemed to dare blow. Daylight filtered through the mine entrance. Too bright after so long in darkness, he didn't exit. His eyes would need time to adjust to the harsh change. He stopped several meters from the exit, keeping to the shadows. His beasts tensed, detecting something they couldn't fully identify. The silence was unnatural. Not even the wind seemed to dare blow. Too easy, his training screamed warnings. An academy doesn't evacuate its mines without reason. Doesn't leave its entrances unguarded for students to do foolish things. The Hydra's core weighed next to many others in his bag, a constant reminder of his partial failure. The egg remained lost, stolen by some fortunate thief who had stumbled upon his experiment. Should go back, he considered while studying the entrance. The mission was clear: find and secure specific beast cores. The egg was extra, and he could obtain it again. But pride? He had spent months preparing everything. Finding the right Hydra, manipulating it to this vein, waiting for the egg to form. All ruined because he grew overconfident, because he hadn't considered someone else might find such a small vein. The mission, he reminded himself. Focus on the mission. The core was enough. He could find another Hydra. The depths were full of them, with time and patience. But the thief is here, a voice whispered in his mind. Close, with my egg. His beast stirred restlessly, sensing his inner conflict. Return, his training insisted. Something is wrong. Go back and plan better. He took one step back, determined to retreat. Then another. It's the right thing, he thought. The sensible thing. He turned toward the protective darkness of the tunnels. And then, to hell with it, he muttered, turning sharply. Nobody steals from me. He took a step toward the light. The massive fireball consumed him instantly. The shelter was an impressive structure located behind the academy. Spacious chambers connected by well-lit tunnels now housed dozens of confused and nervous students. Min, Taro waved his arms upon seeing his friend. Over here. Min approached. Anyone know what's happening? Rin watched as Luna was immediately surrounded by the two noble girls who always accompanied her. A second group of nobles joined them, exchanging quick whispers before dispersing as if they had never spoken. It's obvious, isn't it? Taro began, his voice adopting a conspiratorial tone. All this is because of Rin's mad scientist experiments. What? Min blinked in confusion. Think about it. Taro raised an accusing finger toward Rin. Our room always smells like death and strange processing products. That's because of the cultivation. Rin began. The mushrooms in his hair glow unnaturally. They're naturally luminescent, and today he went down to the depths. Taro was on a roll. He must have activated some ancient device. The mine must be glowing right now, about to explode. Lu arrived just in time to hear the last part. What's going to explode? The mine. Taro grabbed Lu by the shoulders. Rin accidentally filled it with strange fungi. Soon we'll have giant mutant worms emerging everywhere. The worms are already quite big on their own. Rin murmured. Bigger, Taro insisted. With tentacles and light rays. Min tried to contain his laughter. Light rays. Read New Adventures at Empire. It's the only explanation. Taro began walking in circles. Why else would they evacuate the entire academy? Rin searched for Luna with his gaze, but she and her companions had disappeared into the crowd. And that's not all. Taro continued his theory. The fungi will ally with the worms. They'll create an underground empire. Min tried to interrupt. The mushrooms in Rin's hair pulsed, as if finding the idea entertaining. See, Taro pointed at the mushrooms. They're communicating, planning their revolution. If beasts were going to start a revolution, Min said thoughtfully, don't you think mushrooms and worms, such weak beasts, would be the last ones to do it? Lu pinched the bridge of his nose. How do we get to this? Taro, you don't need to invent ridiculous things to avoid telling them about the Hydra, because Lin already knows, and I didn't do anything to make them shelter us. Also, that's not what I meant by lying. But if it makes you feel better, Ren smiled, when the fungi take control, I'll name you Minister of Conspiracy Theories. Huh? Taro raised his fist triumphantly. Luna observed the crowd from an elevated corner of the shelter. A gold-rank Yino agent here in Yano territory. The news transmitted through her handmaidens had left the group of cousins unsettled. Have they discovered us? Her eyes moved among the students, evaluating. Her position at the academy was delicate, direct niece of the king, but pretending to be just another noble. Several meters away, Princess Larissa pretended to be absorbed in a book. Her handmaidens and other cousin surrounded her, maintaining the image of a young noble studying even during a crisis. But her mind worked furiously. The underground labyrinth, Larissa thought while turning a page she wasn't reading. The tunnels between Yino and Yano were an intricate system of passages and beasts. To enter from the other kingdom unseen, they would have to start very deep, gold or platinum rank depth. It was supposed to be impossible to navigate there without a precise map. And the maps were jealously guarded. Leora stayed close to Larissa while talking with a group of students. Her thoughts, however, were far from her current task. A gold rank resource, she calculated while smiling at the students. Yino wouldn't waste such a valuable asset on a simple mission. Agents of that level were scarce, precious, sending one so deep into enemy territory. Luna noticed a subtle signal from one of her handmaidens. Her eyes moved briefly toward Larissa, who had received a similar signal from her own group. Leora, without turning, moved a finger in a practice pattern. What are they searching for? Luna returned to her thoughts. The agent had been in the depths, fighting a Hydra. Why risk so much for a beast that, though rare, wasn't particularly powerful? Larissa softly closed her book. How do they find a path? Did a traitor give them an accurate map? The question ate at her. The tunnels changed constantly. Beasts altered routes. New passages formed while others collapsed. Even with a map, it was an extremely difficult task. Leora finished talking with the students. Why now? She wondered while pretending to check a list. The tension between Yino and Yano had always been present, but this was a significant escalation. The three cousins maintained their positions, separated but connected by their similar thoughts. Their handmaidens moved between them, exchanging signals so subtle they seemed casual. A book changed hands, a handkerchief folded in a certain way, a brooch adjusted in a specific pattern. Luna thought about compromised security. Larissa considered the treaty implications. Leora evaluated the political consequences. None looked directly at the others. Their beasts remained semi-manifested, each synchronized with its tamer, but also alert to the other's signals. Luna's shadow wolf, Larissa's will-o'-the-wisp spirit, and Leora's mineral light fairy, all part of the silent communication network they had perfected. The final question resonated in all three minds, though none expressed it. What if the real target wasn't the Hydra at all? Director Ignatius waited hidden in the trees, facing the mine entrance, his royal phoenix manifesting a golden aura that made each strand of his white hair shimmer with power. The bronze rank guards maintained their encirclement at a greater distance. Their earth beasts would be useful for blocking retreat or providing support, but in direct combat against a gold rank tamer, they would be little more than a hindrance. The supervisor, his ice penguin partially manifested, positioned himself hidden on the other side of the entrance. Silver rank 2, not enough to fight directly against a gold opponent, but he could provide support to the director, who did have a gold rank creature. A presence moved inside the cave. The director sensed it immediately. Gold rank power was unmistakable, impossible to completely conceal. In Yino, where platinum rank was non-existent, that meant someone near the top of their hierarchy, which made their presence here very problematic. His fingers tensed as he prepared an attack. The phoenix concentrated power in his hands, and the temperature around the director began to rise. Enjoy news stories from Empire. But the presence stopped, detected the trap, thought the director as he felt the intruder cautiously retreat. The tension in the air was almost palpable. Following them inside would be a terrible idea. Without a tamer of similar rank specialized in underground combat, the terrain advantages would be too great. Better to wait. To confront them, he had to let them come out into open terrain. The seconds crawled like hours. The presence moved occasionally, evaluating, perhaps thinking it wouldn't be worth it. Come out, the director maintained his position. Save us the trouble of sending someone to follow you. The situation required a permanent solution. A tamer of this level returning to Yino with information about the Academy's defenses would be too dangerous. Better to end this here, where the incident could be contained. As if responding to his thought, the presence moved forward. The director's attack was instantaneous, releasing a massive wave of golden fire that consumed the mine entrance. The heat was so intense that the guards had to retreat further. The supervisor fully manifested his penguin, preparing for whatever would emerge from the flames. When the fire began to dissipate, a mound of earth exploded from the ground. The figure that emerged was a nightmare of flesh and chitin, a human grotesquely fused with an abyssal scorpion, the characteristic mutations of Yino taken to the extreme. A golden hippogriff manifested instantly at his side, its majestic form contrasting with its tamer's monstrosity. The director observed the transformation with a mixture of fascination and revulsion. Yino's techniques for fusing with abyssal beasts had always seemed an abomination to him, an easy path to power that inevitably corrupted its users. The mercenary's eyes opened with recognition. The famous director Ignatius Aurelius of the Imperial Academy of Yano. His voice sounded distorted by the mutations. It's an honor. Ignatius studied his opponent. I can't say the same. Director Ignatius responded, expanding his wings in threat. Though clearly you're someone of importance in Yino. An asset too valuable to let escape. Me, the mercenary pointed to his mutations with a pincer. I'm just one more. Just the result of embracing the true potential of abyssal beasts. Is your presence here a declaration of war? The director kept his voice calm, but his mind worked rapidly. An agent of this level, so deep in enemy territory, the implications were worrying. His right hand moved in a subtle pattern. The bronze rank guards understood the signal and at the right moment would seal the entrance. There would be no retreat. One wrong move, and this could become the first act of a new war between kingdoms. War? The mercenary laughed, a horrible sound through his mutated jaw. The war never really ended, did it? We've just been preparing. And I suppose, the director observed the mutations with disgust. Those abominations are part of that preparation. Abominations, the mercenary spat the word. You and your pretense of purity. At least we don't fear true power. True power. The director maintained his condescending smile while taking a step forward. Yino has always been limited in that aspect. So many resources invested in barren experiments, so much forbidden research, and the result? Not a single platinum rank tamer. The mercenary's crystalline pincers opened and closed rhythmically, a nervous tick that betrayed how much those words had affected him. One platinum tamer, he spat the words like venom. Is that what gives you such confidence? A single double tamer holding up an entire kingdom. Isn't that precisely what you fear? Our king's capabilities. But let's return to the important point. I'm surprised to find an agent of your level, a single agent near the academy. Makes me wonder if Yino is really prepared for whatever it's planning. The guards sealed the entrance, their earth beasts manifesting to create interlocked barriers. "Oh, I see you want me to extend my visit. We have plenty of hospitality for you, so make yourself comfortable." Director Ignatius maintained his casual tone while golden flames danced between his fingers. "So answer, what does Yino seek by sending one of their gold-ranked tamers? Alone." "Alone." The mercenary's voice sounded distorted through his partially transformed jaw. "Do you think I'm alone in this, Director?" "Oh, I know perfectly well that you're alone now." Ignatius let a condescending smile form on his lips. "The real question is why send one of their precious experiments so deep into our territory?" "Precious." The mercenary laughed, a metallic and fleshless sound. "Don't overestimate me, Director. I'm just one of the many gold-ranked tamers that Yino regularly produces now." "Ah, so you admit they sent you?" Ignatius stepped forward, his phoenix spreading its wings in all its majesty. "Though you try to pass yourself off as one of many, your griffin betrays you. You're one of their best, aren't you? What a waste of potential, corrupted by those abyssal beasts." "Waste?" While Yano clings to its traditions, limiting itself to archaic beasts, Yino advances. "Each year we produce more gold-ranked tamers. Each month, more double tamers join our ranks. And soon," he paused dramatically, savoring the moment, "soon our first triple tamers will be ready." "Waste?" While Yano clings to its traditions, limiting itself to archaic beasts, Yino advances. "Each year we produce more gold-ranked tamers. Each month, more double bearers join our ranks. And soon," he paused dramatically, savoring the moment, "soon our first triple bearers will be ready." The director maintained his neutral expression, but his golden feathers bristled slightly at the revelation. Triple tamers were theoretically possible, of course, but the cost, the risk of uncontrolled mutation. "Triples." He recovered quickly, his voice laden with disdain. "It doesn't matter if they can bear 3 beasts or 5, if they're all those abyssal corruptions you so love to create. A true tamer with a pure beast will always be superior." The mercenary's laughter echoed through the clearing, a sound that made several guards shudder. "A true tamer? Like your precious king? I suppose it has merit that he's a double tamer too, but it must be lonely, Director, being so limited, so tied to the old traditions. But times change, old man. A single platinum rank warrior holding up an entire kingdom? Yino no longer depends on exceptional individuals. We have something better, numbers. And you think numbers compensate for quality?" Ignatius allowed more power to flow into his flames. "If you were facing our king right now, you'd already be dead. It doesn't matter if you bear 5 beasts or 10. They're all corruptions of simple silver rank. Nothing compared to a single one of his pure beasts of true power." The mercenary's smile widened, showing teeth altered by mutations. "Oh, but the king isn't here, is he?" In fact, his eyes gleamed with malice. "We know perfectly well that he's not even in the kingdom." Ignatius maintained his neutral expression, but his mind worked rapidly. "If Yino knew that, it must be lonely, Director, being so limited to a single beast. Not like your great absent king. It must be lonely," continued the mercenary theatrically, "to depend so much on one single warrior. What will happen when our triple bearers are ready? When we have 3 gold tamers for every one of yours? I thought you would understand it better as the tamer of that griffin, but I see now that you don't. Let me show you." Ignatius let his power manifest fully, his majestic phoenix enveloping the area in golden flames, the difference between your imitations and a true bond with a pure beast. The supervisor extended his hand as his penguin fully materialized, covering the ground with a thick layer of ice that gleamed under the sunlight. "No more tricks, underground," murmured the supervisor, his eyes fixed on a mutated agent. The director released a powerful flow of fire toward the mercenary. The mercenary evaluated the situation in an instant. "Defend me," ordered to his hippogriff while he himself leaped to the side. The golden flames of Ignatius's phoenix met the hippogriff's wind flow. The resulting explosion shook nearby trees, creating a shockwave that made the guard stagger. The mercenary took advantage of the distraction to bury his legs in the ice. His mutations allowed him to break it enough to use the hole as a foothold and launch himself at dizzying speed toward the supervisor. The supervisor reacted on instinct. His penguin created a barrier of ice stalactites that emerged from the ground like spears. The mercenary twisted between them with unnatural grace, his body contorting in ways no normal human could imitate. Too slow. The mercenary appeared before the supervisor, his scorpion tail emerging from his back like lightning. The supervisor barely had time to create an ice shield. The stinger pierced through it like paper, stopping millimeters from his throat. He began to overpower him and push forward, the ice cracking. It seemed the mercenary's power boosts were far superior to the supervisor's. Pathetic, the mercenary smiled with his mutated teeth while advancing his pincers. A silver rank too, and yet your strength is... A column of golden fire fell from the sky, forcing the mercenary to jump back. The ice beneath his feet evaporated instantly, creating a vapor curtain that momentarily obscured the battlefield. Did you forget who you're fighting? Ignatius's voice resonated as his phoenix descended, its wings extended, creating a wall of golden flames. The mercenary landed beside his hippogriff, which alone had been forced to retreat. I wanted to regain ground control, Director. The mercenary flexed his pincers as more plates sprouted from his skin. A valid tactic against your fire powers, don't you think? Ignatius's golden flames intensified until the air itself seemed to distort with heat. Show me, then, Yino experiment, if your tactics have a future while you ignore me. Of course I will. My future and Yino's are bright after all. The future, murmured Ignatius while his phoenix manifested its complete form, belongs to those who respect the true bond between tamer and beast, not to those who debase themselves into monsters. Luna was concentrated on exchanging discreet signals with her cousins when she felt a light touch on her shoulder. The mushrooms in Ren's hair pulsed softly as she turned, startled at not having sensed him approach due to her distraction. "Do you know what's happening?" asked Ren with a casual smile, as if he hadn't just penetrated her entire surveillance system undetected. Luna quickly composed herself, her shadow twisting uncomfortably. "No, I don't know anything," she responded curtly. "Now leave." "Lie." Ren smiled more widely with what appeared to be amusement. "Also, what are you doing?" Luna's face tinged slightly red, remembering the last time Ren had discovered her ability to detect lies. The proximity in his room, the misunderstanding with his companions. "What I do or don't do is none of your business, fungus," she responded brusquely, crossing her arms. "And also, this has nothing to do with you." "Also a lie." Ren laughed, imitating the casual posture she usually used when interrogating him. "You're exchanging information with them." He discreetly pointed to the other nobles, using rather elaborate mana signals. "What do they mean?" Luna clenched her fists, irritated at having her own tactics used against her. "I don't care what you think you see. Leave. I don't want to see you, and I'm not interested in you." The mushrooms pulsed more intensely while Ren raised an eyebrow. "Wait, that's a lie. Triple lie. That must be some kind of record. And you're interested in me?" "Enough." Luna turned to her handmaidens, who had been watching the exchange with carefully neutral expressions. "Deal with him." The noble students moved with a grace that revealed training beyond mere noble posture. In seconds, they formed a perfect barrier between Luna and Ren. "We suggest you withdraw," one of them said in a soft but firm voice. "Oh." Ren studied them with genuine interest. "Ow!" Luna interrupted before he could talk again. "As you wish." Ren stepped away from the wall with a small mocking bow. "Though you know I'll eventually discover what's happening. I'm quite good at finding secrets and lies lately." Luna watched his back as he walked away, her handmaidens maintaining their protective formation. Only when he was far enough away did she allow herself to release a sigh of frustration. "My lady," one of her handmaidens approached discreetly. "Do you want us to keep him under surveillance?" "No." Luna massaged her temples. "Watched he is. Just keep him away. He's too." She stopped, searching for the right word. "Observant," suggested a handmaiden. Cute? Your type? Suggested another handmaiden with what seemed to be a hint of amusement. Irritating, corrected Luna, sending a murderous glare to her maid, though the blush on her cheeks contradicted her words. Her handmaidens exchanged knowing looks but maintained their professional posture. After all, part of their training included knowing when their lady was lying. And at that moment, all indicators suggested that irritating wasn't precisely the word Luna had wanted to use.